welcome
No,
to
wait, it didn't start. There we go.
welcome to the big black tent after Thanksgiving special.
After Thanksgiving. Okay. Okay.
I am
Do you,
Naima.
I'm Natalie Arsenault, her sidekick.
Yeah, after Thanksgiving, after
Do you
it's been a minute
celebrate?
to celebrate. I haven't done actually much anything besides go to work after the election.
Oh, your picture
And
just went off. Okay, no, it came back. No, but I
after
mean, do you celebrate Thanksgiving?
okay, let's talk about this word celebrate. This is a very interesting word to me. Um,
Loaded.
I'm gonna sound really hotepish. Um, because I'm like, what does that mean to look? I am American by culture. I'm American by culture. I was born here,
Mm-hmm.
so the days that they give me off, I take.
Well, yes. I mean, if the office is closed, the office is closed. Ain't nothing you can do about that.
The office is closed,
But I mean, do
and
y'all like cook and
yeah, we gather
all
as
the
family.
traditional things and all of that?
Well, traditional meaning we get a turkey,
Yeah.
somebody buys a turkey, somebody cooks it, and family gathers.
Okay.
So I'm like, if that's a celebration, I don't know I don't know. This is interesting to me because I understand in school, right? Because if you went to public school, you're under the rule of colonialism, no doubt. And so, you get the lesson of, the tried and true lesson of colonialism of the pilgrim. I don't know anybody who sits around like, we thank God for the pilgrims
I
and
mean, I don't
I
know if
mean,
they thank God for the pilgrims, but I was in a hotel over the weekend and just happened to, I don't really pay attention to the Christian network. That's a whole different conversation. But for whatever reason, whatever station I had it on, Charles Stanley was on there, and he was giving a whole message on Thanksgiving, and he was really talking about the adversity of the pilgrims. And I was like, are you really? I mean, I know you dead and gone, but are you really? Was that really your message, Charles, Chuck, whatever we want to call you? Was
yeah,
that
like,
really,
oh
you
my
really gonna
God.
stand in that pulpit and talk about the adversity of the pilgrims?
So that's what I'm saying. Short of Ed Young and whatever look, they can call themselves whatever they want. These descendants of slaveholders, okay, these descendants of sex traffickers, and I say them specifically because they've kept up the vitriol
Oh yeah.
decades, centuries. So if you wanted them, then Thanksgiving means something different to you. The rest of us got the week off and we meeting up with family. That's
I mean, but it's people that be out here talking about gratitude and thankfulness,
I
and
mean, you can be
it's a.
thankful.
I mean, but
I
ain't you
mean,
thankful every day?
that's what I'm saying. You can be thankful and you can get all the traditional things that retail has taught us. I mean, it's marketing. So retail has taught us, we've been indoctrinated into this retail system. So, the colors, the turkey, mixing your ethnic foods, if that's the thing. But to me, it's like when somebody said, I guess I'm bringing this up because somebody was like, well, do you celebrate Halloween? And I'm like, again, I am a government employee. And there's costumes that are worn. Like, I don't know anybody pulling out a cauldron and whipping up some spirit. I'm like, I mean, there's intentional effort now since I've learned more about Day of the Dead. Like, I like the fact of honoring the ancestors. Like, oh, you can homage to your ancestors. I said, but I understand when my parents, I grew up very conservative Christian, and so
Mm-hmm.
they made a big effort of instead we're going to go to church and dress like disciples. But right,
Mm-hmm.
and Halloween was wicked. But I'm like, okay, I don't know anybody personally. You could be doing this your thing. But I'm like, ain't nothing wrong with my kids dressing up and we going out and getting some candy. I don't see the harm in it. And it's fun to me, like going to the park, like going to the movies. It's just people gathering, sharing some sweets that we might die of later of diabetes and calling it
There's that
and
part.
calling it a night.
Okay.
Like, I don't see that as a celebration. I see it as a cultural norm, and we get together and form community.
Okay. That is one outlook.
And I say that because if it was something else. If retail decided to do something else, like if they want to say, this is Kwanzaa took over, well, we can say even Kwanzaa, right? If Kwanzaa
It's
took over
deranged. First of
Halloween,
all, that's deranged, and I'm not even going to talk about the
uh,
notion of Kwanzaa. Like,
stop, stop.
I'm like, wow, y'all
So
really lost. Okay.
whatever
God,
the
give y'all a
flavor is,
home.
whatever brings community and people gathering together and talking and chatting, I'm like, I'm good. You not hurting me. I'm not hurting you. Child, I ain't got time to whatever that is. If you call that celebration, great. But I went out and met my neighbors and it was fun and I went back home.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I see every single one of them actually.
Okay.
Except ironically, Christmas.
Okay. Okay. Which is coming soon to a theater near you. Yes. Do
So
tell.
Christmas, I intentionally don't put up a tree. Um, I intentionally don't put up a tree, but I do have like this winter forest. Like what
Mhm.
I start doing, which people may say is a little witchy, but what I've started doing that I've never done in my life, because I'm like, this makes more sense, is as a Houstonian, I didn't understand seasons. Really didn't
Right. Because
understand
our
until
leaves
I
don't
was
really
well
change
into
colors and all that. Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah. So now that I understand, oh, there's a season for everything, right? And your body actually goes through seasons, especially as a woman. Um, then I start giving honor to, okay, it's harvest time, it's winter time, it's time to rest, it's time to reflect, right? Now I that becomes more of a spiritual practice for me. And again, since I'm a teacher and I have my 2 weeks off, right? Family gathers,
Okay.
you know, I try to honor winter things like, oh, it's winter. So let's, eat seasonably and do the squash. Um, and I understand culturally there are Christmas things, culturally, there are Muslim things, culturally, there are things going on. But do I lie and tell my kids about Santa? I've never done that, but they don't believe me anyway. Like each one of them had to go through the phase of finding out that Mom, is there Santa Claus? No, I meant you lying. Like each one of nobody would believe me. And the school would literally call me like, your kid said there's no Santa. I'm like, yeah, I told them there's no Santa. And they come home like, Mom, you lied. My teacher said there's Santa. I'm like, here we go again. But I never argue with them. I just never lied to them.
Right.
So it's like whatever's cultural, don't ask me to lie about it, you know. I don't mind putting on the red and green, but I just don't do a tree. I don't do the orbs. I don't do that. I do love me some pine cones though.
Okay.
I
Okay.
do love some pine cones. I do love red. I do love the pajamas. Um, like I don't mind the festive party of getting together, but I'm not into celebrating technically anything. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not into celebrating anything. I'll honor what you believe and I'll honor you as a human being, but I mean I'm good.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's a thing. All right.
Because I think celebration is kind of like worship to me. And I don't really do that either. So
It's all worship,
yeah. So I'm like,
even when you think you're not celebrating, which is my
I
statement.
mean,
I mean,
you say what?
anything you give your energy to is worship, right? It's a form of
Well, my
worship. It's like the show. If I don't know if you remember the show American Gods that I was telling you
yes,
about, right?
yes, yes, I
And if
saw
you
that. Yeah.
remember like Astara and all those folks, the god of technology and all that, and who was winning and losing and all this other stuff, right? It's less about whatever you consider a celebration and more about what you give your energy to and your
Well,
money,
that,
your time, your energy, and your money, right? So that is
that is
that's the system of currency and the metric that is used.
true. Well, I would hope, right, that my intention and maybe others' intention is to invest in family, community, and relationships. Like, what vehicle do you
But
use
can't
to
we
invest?
do that every day?
Can we do that well,
Every
no, not
day
necessarily.
or at some other cadence, right?
I mean,
Like people are like, oh well, I do it because it's a time to get together with family. Well, last weekend was also a time to get together with family, but we didn't do it then.
well, I think and this I do want to say that because for a lot of us, we don't have the same time off. So traditionally, economically, corporately, they schedule time where people can get off at the same time and be together. Like
Which
the
really
make a
the
call.
only day that exists is Christmas, when most stores are closed unless you work at a Walgreens, at which point then it's open. But every other holiday, Thanksgiving including, grocery stores are open till a certain amount of time. So if you have family members who work at grocery stores, Starbucks was open the other day.
Well, I
So,
don't have that. We
you
get
know,
off
I'm
this
just
day,
saying. So,
everybody's off this
again,
day.
not everything's still not shut down entirely. But you can also
Days.
plan, right? Because a lot of times it's not like you're getting paid time off from these places, right? So like in certain corporate structures, you're getting paid time off, right? Great. But if you work a blue collar job, and unless you unionized or something, more than likely the store is shut down, like the store is closed, but you're not getting paid time off more than likely. So in theory, you could schedule it just like you schedule a family reunion.
Oh yeah, but again, most people are agents of a schedule. So funerals, right? We
That's what I'm
always say
saying.
we shouldn't wait to the
We shouldn't wait
funeral.
till we have right, exactly. And yet people do. So that's what I'm saying. So like that's the thing that you give the energy to, right? So like, and I just had this conversation with my husband the other day because I was like, man, I really love sparkly festive things. As you can tell, like my background, I get balloons swapped out pretty regularly. We do festive things. But there are some things that I can't get except at this time period. And I'm like, that is so horrible. Like, I can't get Williams Sonoma's hot chocolate 24/7. They don't sell it. They refuse to sell it. I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? Sell that stuff throughout the year. So it's like, even if you don't want to participate, which I don't in any way, shape, or form, um, I'm stuck with certain things that I'm only allowed to have once the gatekeepers have decided this is the season and we're measuring you in this season. Right. So
Oh,
there's a thoughtfulness that they've put into it around why, like, you just like Martin was like, why can't, if you want lights on the house, put them up whenever. I was like, the HOA is not gonna let us do that. I was like,
yeah, they don't. We
After
already got our
the
letter,
first
and I'm
week of
not a part
January, them lights better be down, or else they coming around here and they are citing people and you're getting stuff in your mailbox. Okay. So I'm like, even if you don't want to participate, there are things that, again, the gatekeepers have decided you can't have access to. If you're a person who loves pumpkin spice, whatever, which I really don't understand, but God bless you for the pumpkin spice if you love it. You can't get that in July. There's no pumpkin spice latte in July. You just can't have it. It does not exist. Starbucks ain't releasing it. PJ's ain't releasing it. Seattle's Best, nobody's releasing it. So I'm just disappointed in the fact that in some ways they kind of force your hand to participate and drive the metric and energy around it. Which is why I stock up. So I try to I buy crates, you know me. I buy crates of Williams Sonoma hot chocolates. I'm like, what you not gonna do is tell me in July when I want some goddamn hot chocolate, I can't have no hot chocolate. Okay. So so I buy crates of stuff and whatever. But I think it's sad that like like if you didn't want to give your energy to this time period, because they're measuring, right? Whether you want them to or not.
Can you define measuring?
Yeah, they are looking at the amount of, I mean, everything. So from social media posts, now that we have it, where everybody's out there, posting a festive hashtag, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, whatever the hashtag is, right? To the money that you're spending on certain things,
Oh yeah.
to how great, when they roll out pumpkin spice latte on that first day. We're looking at the trajectory. What did it do last year? What did it do the year before that? Oh, look, numbers are up. People are now gravitating back to this idea, right? How many turkeys get sold? How many, right? So like all of that is like they're measuring, right? How much energy we are giving to these things. And they measure the best way they know how to, which is through obviously your spend, because that's easily trackable. And then
Right.
also, now that we have social media and stuff like that, they're tracking all of that too. So yeah, so there and from a systemic perspective, right? They let everybody suddenly stop with Thanksgiving, right? Just let everybody let it pass like a whole nother day. Nobody buys turkeys. Everybody decide they having hoagies for lunch or whatever, right? It would be a meltdown somewhere. Like
Right.
it just
Yes. Yes.
right, like
It'd be
they
a
just
big impact
wouldn't
on the economy. Yeah.
impact on the economy. The sway, again, from a psyop perspective, what is the social norming and what are the pervasive winds that are happening at any point in time, right? And how do you change those and things like that? That's all a part of that, right? From a marketing perspective, from a governing perspective, all of it. So yeah, so anyway.
All right. I mean, when you say that, this kind of opens the door probably a little more darkness. But ever since the election, this has been my thought. And you saying this kind of validates this thought because I thought, man, what will people be doing during the apocalypse, right? My thing was, so
Dying,
we know you said what?
dying.
Die. We're talking about this machine that we're in, basically, this machine that runs, right? Whether
Hmm.
you participate or not, this machine is going. And it says when okay, it's a little funkier every year as it gets sooner. It's like August, Christmas stuff is popping up on shelves, but it's like, all right, it's Christmas time, like a well-seasoned theater production, right? It's Christmas time. Put up the Christmas stuff. Okay, then yeah. All right, the t-shirts, the music, the
Yep.
lighting, the like
Cue the production. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
so here I am. This is the interesting thing about it, right? Because here I am, right? um like what are people going to be doing during the apocalypse? We're going to be doing exactly what we usually do because the machine,
No,
right?
in the
And
apocalypse, you're not gonna have it to do.
well, this is what I think. This is what's so crazy about this. When they I don't know if this was our culture that does this, but when they say the revolution will not be televised, right?
Hmm.
I will never forget this. When the housing market crisis was going on, right?
Hmm.
And you had I forgot her name, but it was a chocolate pundit. It was a melanated sister on today's show. I can't remember her name, but I focus on her because during that time it wasn't a lot of us. So
Hmm.
she was specifically talking about how everything was fine, and da da da
Yeah,
da.
it's media's job to tell you
Right.
everything.
It was her
Yeah.
job, and
Hmm.
I realized at that last because I think it was in my early 20s. I was like, oh, they're not gonna tell us. They're
Hmm.
gonna deny.
Yes.
Right? Into the bomb just comes in and psh, right? Just goes,
Case in point, I was just reading a headline that came through. I forgot who. It might have been Variety magazine. I don't remember somebody, but there's a podcast called Pod Save America,
mm,
and they just did the first interview with Kamala Harris's um, lead campaign manager.
okay.
And one of the things that he said, and this is the same guy who worked on the Obama campaign and all this other good stuff. So one of the things that he said, he was stunned because at no point did their internal polling. So, there's a lot of external NBC polls, universities poll, there's lots of people that poll things, Pew Research polls, all this stuff during the electorates, during the election seasons. And he was like, and then, campaigns have their own independent polling. And he said, at no point did our independent polling internally ever have us ahead. So he was like, when the media kept coming out with this stuff saying we were leading, he was like, I didn't understand. He was like, I was shocked. He was like, because nothing inside of our camp told us we were leading.
Wow.
So, right. So I share that just to say that's the power of the media. The media is trying to create a narrative. And in that case, they're trying to tell you with the polling of Kamala, right? that it's going to be okay. Look, she's ahead. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Or conversely, not mobilize you because you're thinking she's ahead, so she doesn't need your help, so you don't go to the polls, right? I don't know what their strategy was, but I'm just saying there's kind of several outcomes that could drive. So to your point about when the housing market is failing, right? They're going to tell you, oh, no, everything's okay. You got to keep spending your money. It's okay. It's fine. People aren't getting their homes foreclosed on in record numbers. People aren't, whatever, all that, right? That's what they're going to do.
Yes. And I think that, and if most people, I don't say most people, but a lot of people, right? Since learning that, I thought, okay, this is a shift I need to take. But a whole lot of people take their cues from the media,
Mm-hmm.
right? They take their cues from the media. So they are looking for plans, health, safety, those type
Yep.
of indicators to know what to do next. And I thought, wow, because yeah, this is not happening. There could be, and I don't think this is going to happen. Trust, I don't think this is going to happen. But there could be tanks literally rolling up to my front door, and there be no other indicators. So,
Probably.
like the commercial's going to be the commercial,
Mm-hmm.
TikTok's going to be TikToking,
Yep.
Facebook is going
It'll
to
be
be.
a few people out there who filming it, but people gonna say that they crazy.
It's going to say it's AI,
Yeah.
right?
Either AI or they crazy. That's just those preppers prepping.
And now with AI, literally, I go to the comments and I'm
Yeah,
like,
you
is it
can.
AI? Is it,
You can.
Um,
Yeah.
stuff is looking so crazy. But that's when I realized, okay, no matter what goes down in reality, I use
Yeah.
that so loosely today, but it is what it is. Reality, that yeah,
I
the
mean,
ability to discern is key.
yeah. Well, and yeah, the ability to discern is definitely key. And I also think people people really just want to check out and have their stuff, right? People are as long as you don't touch their stuff in any some meaningful way, right? They just want to check out and be out of the process. And I mean that from the standpoint of both from a logic perspective, like just what common sense would dictate in a certain situation, as well as like what an educated mindset would be, right? So like again, back to the election. So there's this whole discussion around tariffs, right? And that we need to be
Break that
making.
down. Break that down for me. I don't really understand or pay
So there's
attention.
a whole discussion around tariffs, which is basically a tax, a fee that you can impose, that governments can impose on things coming in to
Okay.
their ports, right? So anything that gets imported in, if you open something and they say imported from, and it's not,
Mm-hmm.
a tariff could be applied to that. And people heard the argument that said, okay, we need to be more resilient in the United States, and we need to be creating more of our stuff. We need to have pride of ownership and create our stuff. I don't disagree with that. I
I've heard that before.
I don't yeah, I mean that argument has been around since basically, GM started moving their stuff out of Detroit to somewhere else, right? So like forever. That we need to make more stuff made in America, right? And that is great. And I also agree. I'm like, we should be making more stuff in the United States. We should, whatever. And so people think, oh, let's put these tariffs. They heard this whole conversation around if we put tariffs on the exports on the thing or the things that we're importing, then that will
Mhm.
drive the US companies to make things internally so that they don't have to buy the things externally, and they won't have the thing with they won't have tariffs, right? And again, and whether I am not managing my own expectations correctly about logic and humans. It's probably the
What makes
first
sense?
problem. It's probably the first problem. Or that many people just aren't educated in what these things really mean and how things really work together.
Mhm.
Um, that's not really how that works. Like companies don't pay for anything. That is their role is to not pay for anything. If they could get away with not paying for nothing, that's what they would do. Um, so when a tariff gets imposed, so you look at your phone, whether you got an Apple phone or a Samsung phone or a watch or whatever, your TVs, whatever the case may be, all the things that have either parts made somewhere else, even if those parts get assembled here in the United States, right? Doesn't matter, even if they get assembled in the United States. The parts are shipped from somewhere else. It's either made wholly somewhere else or you're getting parts to make it here somewhere else. But the point is that something is coming from somewhere else into here.
Right, right.
The cost of bringing that product into here, whatever that added amount of money is to get that item into here, they are going to pass that cost on to you. They are not just going to willfully say, oh, we have to pay another $40 million in these tariffs. Great, we'll absorb that, as will our shareholders. No company is going to say that. They're going to be like, okay, what's the percentage on the product that we need to increase the price of the product by so that we can recover the cost of these tariffs? So, and then, people are like, oh, well, that's fine. I would gladly pay more for something to be made in the United States. Okay, well, there are products that are already made in the United States that you could pay for, except you don't want a $50 white t-shirt. You want a $3 white t-shirt. So the t-shirt that was once $3 is now going to be $30 because of the tariff, which you don't really want to pay for, because if you really wanted to pay for it, you would have just bought it from the US already, because you can buy shirts made in the United States from US cotton, US, with all the things. So that's my thing. Same thing with like, people who are excited about, whatever might be coming as a result of potential regulations and policies around having better quality food. People are like, well, the stuff that we make in America is not even allowed in Europe. So, okay, great. But the stuff that we make in America isn't widely made in Europe in general. So, like, our diets are entirely different. You're not going to walk into a European grocery store and find 52 aisles worth of processed foods.
Right.
Unless it's an American based grocery store. So if you go to an expat grocery store, you're gonna be able to find Lucky Charms. It's gonna be fine. Um,
Yeah.
so so of course they don't have all the things. They can outlaw a lot of things. It's not really gonna matter because most of the people in Europe are not buying. There's not a plethora of it to buy, right? You walk into any grocery store in America, including now Whole Foods. Thank you, Jeff. And you got 52 hours of processed foods. So, and you got one aisle of here's some produce, loosely
You're
arranged.
right.
God
You're
bless you.
right. You're very right.
So we want to, instead of us making the hard decisions for ourselves and sticking to it, we want someone to just remove the options for everybody else. This goes back to freedom of choice, right? Because I can't make the decision and stick to it myself. I need the government to regulate it away. Because I refuse to just go to the grocery store and buy produce. And instead of buying pre-canned fruit cocktail, buy the fruits from the produce section to make fruit cocktail. I don't want to do
And
that.
I like
I just want you
canned
to
fruit.
regulate it so that the fruit cocktail that's processed.
I like canned fruit. I just want to admit that.
I like canned fruit and I cannot lie. Okay. So that's the real problem. This goes back to the mission of this
Like
podcast,
syrup.
accountability.
No, 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 seriously,
Yeah.
because I was like, is she saying sometimes I wonder, I don't know if it's gross incompetence or it's deceit and trickery because okay, I heard the conspiracy that America, right, the dollar is has dived, right? We're struggling. instead of straight going into inflation of now t-shirts are $50, we're going to blame it on something called tariffs, right? And we're going to pretend this is what we did and this is why everything is $50. So I really don't know what the logic is behind that, because as you said, even Ford, even all American Ford, has most of its parts shipped from China.
Yeah, people get
So,
them made in other places. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like most Americans, we don't bring in the type of income, majority of Americans, to afford that spike in price. So I just and we're addicted, and
Mhm.
we're not willing to pay that. So all the MAGA who are like, make America great
Mhm.
again, I'm convinced, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I'm convinced a particular group of white women are gonna be barefoot pregnant picking that cabbage because you got rid of the cheap labor willing to do the job.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well,
I don't
you just
understand.
won't have the thing anymore.
Oh, don't say
You
that.
just won't, you won't have the strawberries, you won't have the avocado, you won't have the orange, you won't have the,
Because I'm
because
not picking it. You're right.
yeah, because I'm not picking it. I can't even sew a button on my own shirt. So in the apocalypse, my job will be to supervise, to come up with strategies, and to make sure people execute. That is my lot in life. Um, very
Oh
early
my
on, I worked at Foley's very early on, and I lasted 2 whole weeks, and I was like, I quit. I quit the day, and the manager was like, don't you want to give your 2 weeks notice? You're not going to be able to use us as a reference. I was like, girl, I'm not going to need y'all as no reference. Bye, I'm leaving. And I left, walked out the door. So, like I'm not built that way. So, yeah, it just won't exist anymore because there's no one there in the same way. And this is what I said about the electric cars. And don't get me wrong, electric cars have come a long way. But when they polled a lot of current electric car owners, they said they would never buy an electric car currently. They would not renew and go get another electric car. And the reason is the same thing that's about to happen with all the other stuff when you talk about bring everything back to America. There is no infrastructure for it.
God.
You rolled out all these electric cars. You don't have no gas station. So I'm on a road driving from here to New Orleans, where I'm getting electricity from to plug in my car, which is gonna take 45 minutes. Maybe if you got an advanced battery, it could take all day overnight, way back when, to get my car powered. So the infrastructure doesn't exist. It just doesn't. Where are we making? And I had this discussion on NPR the other day. Um, the chips that we make, or the chips that we need for a lot of electronic devices are not made here. They're made
Oh,
other places. Now there are a handful of places here that make them, but ultimately, the scale at which we need them at, those facilities cannot suddenly ramp up and go from making 5 million chips a year to 150 million chips a year. Like, that's just not how that works. So, we have not built oil refinery here in like 50, 60 years.
you haven't educated people here to do that, and you trying to
Haven't-
restrict immigration? Okay, you ain't teaching me that.
Correct.
You ain't teaching me.
Correct. Correct. I'm like, like, how many manufacturing facilities for, because again, and I'll tell you this, during COVID, we went during COVID, and my husband got a new car during COVID. And the car that he was getting was being assembled at this particular manufacturer's facility in Georgia. So the car was being put together in Georgia. The problem was that, though, with COVID, there were less people who could go into the facility. So the amount of production had drastically dropped. So for his car, they were putting an extra $10 or $15,000. I forgot what the number was, but it was something outrageous. On top of the MSRP, because they were saying that it was a market fee that they were charging, because there was a big demand for these vehicles and they couldn't meet the demand in the market. And so They basically added a market fee on top of that. And I was like, you lost your level of mind. But that's essentially what we're talking about. It's great to have a plan, a forward plan to say, hey, by 2040, we want to see an extra X amount of whatever return to whatever. Great. Um, but you can't just flip a switch overnight in even in 4 years. You can't just flip a switch and be like, we're gonna start making all this stuff in America. Okay, you do that and see what happens.
Ah,
It's not,
okay, so
not
you
feasible.
reminding me, this is what you're reminding me of that maybe a lot of Americans have forgotten. You're reminding me of because these ideas came up during COVID under Trump when it was an infrastructure issue with masks. And all of a sudden he's like, we're going to buy the masks from Americans. They're like, we don't make those masks, right? We don't make that. We
Thank
don't have the,
you.
right? And it was a nightmare to the point where what were we doing? We were sewing our own
People were sewing
masks.
their own masks. That's correct. I had to buy some from my stylist who was making masks. Correct.
So I was like, holy smoke, because that's exactly what will happen. People learn to go without, and people who can do, right?
Yes. So
Um,
the haves will not have a problem. They never have a
have
problem. The
you're right.
haves will not have a problem.
That's true.
But the country is only made up about 5% of haves.
That's true.
The other 95% of the country is mainly sort of, kind of might have the necessities, and then a big chunk of we don't have it. We just don't have, we ain't got it.
You're right. And when you talk about manufacturing anything, which has not been promoted in a generation, right? I think home ec went bye
Right.
bye when we were in school and we weren't taught. You like our mothers focused us on education and not
Correct.
home ec type stuff.
Correct.
Um, so I was telling my mom the other day when the boomers die, look, don't nobody remember how to slaughter a pig or kill a chicken unless you
Nothing.
up in the fields.
Nothing.
Right?
Absolutely nothing. And what am I going to be at that point in time? A vegan. Because I don't even know how to milk a cow. I remember in like when I was like 7 or 8, we went to like some little dairy farm and you got to milk the cow as a party or whatever. And I struggled then. So I don't know how to do it now. So who milking the cow? So dairy is out as a protein source for me. Like maybe
And
some
you know what?
eggs.
I can see that happening. I can literally see our generation being like, I'm not slaughtering the cow. I'm not like
Oh,
it literally would just
let's
stop.
be clear. Most of our generation has been wooed into not even connecting the fact that there was a cow that got slaughtered. Forget knowing how to do it. Most of us, our age and younger, and definitely younger, just think the meat miraculously ends up in the meat department at the grocery store. They do not tie it to an animal having lost its life and someone having herded it into the stall to lose its life.
That's 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 a lot like work I'm not gonna do. There's like we're in
Oh
Houston,
yeah,
so the Houston look, them Cowboys about to be as rich as they want. Well, they are rich, but they about to be as rich as they want to be because they will hurt it, slaughter it, whatever. But I'm not lining up for that. It's too much energy, and that's how it's gonna be during Trump. I think we're gonna find out who's like you said, the haves will have,
the haves will
right?
have.
And then you'll have those who convince the haves that they can get
Yeah,
and fetch for the haves. It's starting to look like what was that movie? Um
with the
about the
Mockingjay.
district?
Yeah, the
Huh?
Mockingjay, the
Yeah,
Mockinggirl, Katniss, and all of them. I don't remember the
yeah.
name, Mockingbird or something. I don't know what it was. But anyway, but yeah, yeah.
It's starting to,
And District
resemble all
12
that.
was raggedy for the record. District 1 was where all the haves was at, and they was looking cute. And District 12 was raggedy.
I'm just I'm just like, wow.
Also
So
on
I'm
the movie, the Snowpiercer train thing, where the train cabins, each of the train cabins are like a group of people, and the furthest back is like the most raggedy of the people who doing the like most menial, dirty, horrible work ever.
I mean, so what are we doing during the apocalypse? We do what we usually do until we're forced to change. That's pretty much I realize what is happening. There's the apocalyptic culture that has prepared, i.e. the Amish would like they're gonna be unbothered, right? Because they in it
They there,
always.
they in it, they don't care. But I don't know if the Amish have weapons. Like I don't know if
No,
they
they don't.
believe I don't know if they
Well,
believe in
they
guns
ain't
and
tell
stuff.
me if they did,
I
okay?
mean, I don't know if they do, but I don't know if they believe in guns and stuff like that because I'm like, if you can't protect your land, it's great to have it. You'd have
That's
all the little great jams and whatever you want to have that you done made and sewn and whatever. But if you can't keep it, it's a different story.
I know they put up a lot of treaties because they were slaughtered at one point.
Hmm.
Um, and they made some treaties, but no, you're right. Like I don't
I
know.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they believe in guns or whatever. And you're not gonna win it with a pitchfork. I can tell you that much. The other thing that I had told my husband the other day when we was talking about these very same topics, I was like, let me tell you what the problem is. This is the real problem. This is the real when you do a root cause analysis on the current state of where we are and why we are here. Let me tell you what the problem is. The fundamental problem is, and people won't admit it because they don't want to hold a mirror up to themselves. And black people, y'all are a part of this. I'm about to tell you right now. You might not like me once I tell you this, but this is it. This is the case. So this country was founded on slavery. It is
Okay.
interwoven into its DNA. We know white people fully understand that. They had slaves, they was a part of it, they lineage of slave ownership, all of that.
Right.
Black people
Right. Okay.
think that they only were the slaves.
Okay.
They have now found themselves in a very entitled position to now also love slavery.
What are you talking about?
So, and this is everybody who's in America. And I don't know if it's a spirit that's on America or whatever, but
What you
we
talking about?
absolutely love slavery. Absolutely. Love the enslavement of human beings. 110%.
What you
100%.
talking about?
I'm talking about how this economy runs. This economy is powered, as is the global economy in general, but we talking about America, so let's just focus on us for a minute. It is run on slavery. People are okay with people in China making 25 cents a day so that you can get your $3 shirt, so that you can get your phone for $7.99 instead of $5,200. People are okay with all of that. That is human slavery. It's human slavery. People are okay with people in the fields picking their watermelons, getting their strawberries, all of that for $3 a day, whatever, living in horrible conditions. The amount of harassment and rape and all of that that goes on from what I heard about in the migrant community is absolutely astounding and ridiculousness. Like all that. We're okay with that. We have been indoctrinated into the mindset of enjoying the fruits of slaves, modern day slavery.
Okay, so in my head, I'm hearing America. I'm hearing a couple different conversations. I'm hearing classism.
That's
I'm
not
hearing
even
capitalism.
classism. It's not even
Hmm?
classism. I'm not even going to water it down to classism. There is actual slavery.
Okay, so what are you talking about when you say what you talking about when you say slavery? Because I only know the one type of slavery, which
You
was
talking about chattel slavery.
yes.
That's a newfound slavery that they made just for us crossing the transatlantic ocean.
Okay,
That's
what
different.
slavery are you talking about?
Human bondage. So people are, again, if you are paying people, so we already know China has a gajillion human rights issues.
Right.
There is no hiding it. And yet we are okay with buying our goods and things from China because it keeps our products cheap because they are willing to be the slave master over their 1 billion people. So they
Okay.
are willing to have 5-year-olds in sweatshops because they're the only ones who can run the little thread through the thing because their fingers is little for 18 hours a day. That's slavery. It's a form of slavery. It's modern day.
So I'm gonna play all the devil's advocates and in
Yep.
between. I think it's a broad statement to say that we're okay with it.
Oh, we okay with it.
because I think that we ourselves are slaves to varying degrees. There's haves and haves not, but if the average American makes less than $50,000 a year, right? And it could be even less in some of these other communities. You are literally just going to work and going home. You kind of like on a survival
Yeah, but
plane
are
yourself.
we really gonna compare that to people who make
We're not comparing it.
five
We're
hundred
not
dollars a
comparing it.
year?
We're not comparing it. I'm just talking about the amount because we talk about celebration and worship and this stuff. I'm talking about the amount of energy it takes for most Americans to live paycheck to paycheck to have shelter over your head. I'm not talking about whatever mainstream America makes, right? That goes on 2.5 vacations a year. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the slaves in this country that keep this machine going. The ones who couldn't take off for COVID, our service workers, right? Who end
Mm-hmm.
up dying in the process.
Yeah.
So even though, yes, we are wealthier by far than those countries, our cost of living is pretty darn high. We do get some luxuries in between of maybe better medical care, water, and, a better cabin. But, there are a lot of us that are literally still in survival mode. The ones who work, who have to go to work every day
Yeah, but
and have to wait on that check every week to keep the rent paid. And so if our American economy depends on the minimum wage, and those minimum wage workers are working one, two, three jobs.
yeah. But
And
that's still loving slavery.
but this is my thing. I think that conditioning is real. I think conditioning is a thing. I think this machine is a thing. If
Yeah,
they say 30,
but the machine only goes because even the people that you're talking about, so the people you're talking about, there's a
yeah.
percentage of those people who
Mm-hmm.
are living paycheck to paycheck, but
Yeah.
nails is did and they got they hair is taken care of.
I mean, well, yes, this is my thing, because I'm not saying people not being human. Look, nobody is out here,
Is that
maybe a couple
human?
people. This is why I'm saying this, because people get to live. It's sort of like saying you can't, and I know you probably gonna dive on this argument. You can't have kids, but you have them anyway. People are gonna be human, meaning people are going to find vices in order to survive this, whatever this is we're in, right? People are going to find ways to compensate for whatever drudge is going on in their life, whether they know it consciously or subconsciously. People are going to find little vices, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sugar, whether it's nails, hair. People are going to do some weird stuff to try to make it or feel some kind of way about themselves. It doesn't make sense to me all the time, but I know each one of us has something within us in
You
order to
do,
get to the next step.
but ultimately, right? If you're really surviving, this is why I don't like the way we code words in this current trauma obsessed culture that we have. If you are surviving, if
Mm-hmm.
you're surviving, no, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have no vices. You you
You
you
don't have to
you
what?
you don't have no vices. You're not going to get your hair done. You're not going to get your nails done. You're not going to the club this weekend. You're not drinking alcohol. You're not going to buy alcohol from the store. You're surviving. And that's the thing. I think America is so far gone. I don't think we get it. I don't think we get it. When you want to talk about survival and what's happening, go to some little village in Malaysia.
I'm not talking about that.
But that's what
I'm not. I'm
no,
not
but that's what I'm
comparing
saying.
pain
If
like
we're gonna
that.
talk about survival, if we're
But
talking
no,
about you
okay.
surviving,
Because I'm not talking about, look, our Americans have our own issues in comparative to where we are. They have their own issues in comparable to where they are. Because as a community,
there are very
we have
few people here
literally,
surviving.
well, this is why I say this, because you're right. We have a system that will catch you. Undoubtedly so. We have a system that will catch you. You have to be drugged out, strung out, and refusing to
Correct.
go into a shelter, right?
Correct.
So you have a system that catches you. I think most of us here have mental processing issues. We have some type of other traumas going on within our brains that keep us from accessing our true wealth. So I think like there was this quote I got during meditation, and it said, is your heart grieving or being tortured? Right? I think we have a sense of torturing ourselves here through programming, through psyops, through God knows what, through our
Mhm.
diet, but we have a degree of torturing ourselves with maybe having too much. That could be a sense of that, right? Um, so I get it. We're not in India. We're not, living in the dump of, right. That's not what we're doing. We get that. We have a different specific type of torture. We can't access our wealth and greatness even through in the midst of all this abundance that we're sitting in. Even if
That's
the
correct.
abundance is wigs, even if the abundance is thrifting, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
We've got some type of issue going on where we as Americans, and I say I'm using this universal we because I know people who feel completely trapped, who feel completely helpless in the midst of all the opportunities around us because we have some type of block going on, right? So, yeah. So, I'm just saying, in this culture, in this American culture, somehow we're not accessing our full capacity because of what? Too many distractions, because of integration, because of lack of priorities, because of lack of wisdom, lack of leadership, maybe
All
lack
of
of
the
community.
above. But ultimately, it's probably a combination of all of the above. But ultimately, the only person who is accountable for your current state, unless you have been railroaded by the justice system and are locked up in the jail cell and you didn't do it,
Mhm.
is you. If you are
Yes.
freely walking in and out of your front door every day, your current circumstance, the buck only stops with you. I don't care how much trauma you've endured. We've all endured trauma, all of it. Everybody. Everybody got their baggage. Everybody got their black box. Lord knows I got one. Everybody got it. But the
Yes.
bottom line is the buck 100% sits with you.
And even knowing that, what do you think is the fundamental reason why most Americans hate their jobs, something's off in their life, are not accessing joy? What is it about us that it seems to be difficult to shift into our birthrights of love, freedom? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
what's the shift? Why are we not producing what we need to be producing?
I mean, I think it's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of things that drive that. So I can't just say, oh, it's this one thing, right? But I will say
Mm-hmm.
this. I think, first of all, the vast majority of Americans have bought into this idea that your job is supposed to somehow fulfill you, which I
We'll
don't
talk about
understand.
that.
Like, your job is you have a skill, you have a
Mm-hmm.
place that says we need this skill, and we're
Mm-hmm.
going to pay you X dollars for that skill. You
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I accept X dollars. I'm going to give you this skill. And that's pretty much where it stops.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So you're in the parking lot crying because you want something else and whatever else, and you want purpose and you want acknowledgement and you want all these, like, who told you your job was supposed to be that? I really don't understand where, like, I do understand where it came from. But for the love of God, that is not what your job is. Your job is a paycheck. You need to go find fulfillment somewhere else. Just like you need to go find friends somewhere. People talking about my work bestie. I don't got there and work bestie. My best friends. like no. Like, you show up to your job, you provide a service, and you go home.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing more, nothing less. It's not quiet quitting. It's not quiet firing. It's not none of that. It's look, I'm supposed to do these accounts payable clearings. I'm gonna clear these invoices. I have so many invoices I need to follow up on. This is what I do. This is my job. I'm gonna get here. I'm gonna do this thing, and then at 5 or 4 or whatever the thing is, I'm out. I'm done. Bye. And then you go.
Well, some people believe they should be doing their dream job. They should be doing this. They should, right?
If you feel like you should, if you feel like you have a dream job, then go do your dream job. I don't know what else to tell you. if you are currently sitting in somebody's front reception desk as the security guard and you walk by the mirror every day and don't recognize yourself and you're like, this is not my life. My life is I'm supposed to be a surgeon or I'm supposed to be in the NBA or whatever, then you have to put in the work to do that.
That's so true. That's so true. Yes.
So that's what I'm like, go do like there is so much information out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's obscene. So like for someone to just be like, I don't know, so I'm just gonna sit in the parking lot and cry and what I don't you are talking about like the people who we see that people often envy or people look up to and all this other stuff, they didn't get there by just kind of
You're right.
complacency and settling. They tried 10,000 different things to get to where they needed to be.
That's true. You're right.
So either you're going to wake up every day and go be happy at your security guard job and be like, I'm gonna be the best darn security guard. This is my lot in life. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna create my world around this. This is the means to my end, and then move on. Or you're gonna be at the security guard check saying this is not where I'm supposed to be. Let me figure out what my next steps need to be and how many different variations of these things I need to do to get out of this.
Mm. Yeah.
So, I mean, Jay-Z was selling crack rocks at one point in time. He is now selling Ace of Spades. So, like,
Not that he's promoting selling crack rock.
I'm just saying, like, I was listening to Cardi B. I was listening to Cardi B the other day doing an interview, and I'm not a big fan of Cardi B. Throw whatever you want at me, whatever. But I'm not a big fan. But I do appreciate her for saying this in the interview when they talked about her stripping. She talked about her stripping and she was like, they were like, what, so what drove you to stripping? And she was like, look, I was getting my A beat by my ex-boyfriend living with his mama in this house in a one-bedroom apartment. She was like, I'm making $200 a week. I was never going to get out of that. So she said she went to the poll. Okay, great. Look, I'm not supposed to judge you for whatever. Like you're an adult, you got other consenting adults, do whatever, right? But she also had a plan to get off of the poll. It was a means to an end. So you show up at Ricky's cabaret every night crying because you've chosen that this is an option for you. You crying every night, you on a pole, but what is your plan? Like what are you doing? Like what are we moving past it? Because there's a lot of people I know who've just resigned to be in the profession that they're going to be in. And if you've resigned to be in the profession you're going to be in, then that's your decision. And you have the right as an adult to make that decision. But I don't believe you have the right to really cry about it to other people. Like, don't burden other people with your 100% decision. Like that's your choice. And I had a friend, I have a very good friend of mine who, when she graduated college, she decided to work in retail. And the reason was because she wanted to get a holistic view of the ultimate industry and job that she wanted in the future. So her plan was to go into retail because you get to see all of an operation, right? From her vantage point. That was what she was thinking. So she goes and she's working at this retail store. And she wasn't like a cashier or anything. She was like in administration. But every day that I would talk to her, she would be just sad all the time, like just sad that she was doing. And I was like, look, okay, by week number 2, I was like, okay, so look, what you're not gonna do is call me every day sad about the choice you made. Because right now you could leave retail and you could go to corporate. You could easily walk into ExxonMobil, you could start a different career path there that will put you on a different trajectory. But you've decided that based on where you want to go and what you want to do, this is the stepping stone. So focus on this being the stepping stone. Stop hollering about it every time I talk to you, because I'm not going to talk to you no more. It's just going to be the conversation.
Well, what did she do? What did she end up doing?
Now she's great. She's a great consultant, doing fine. She's well into her long 6 figures. She's doing great. But ultimately, 25-ish years ago, that she was very sad every night when she left that job. And I was like, what we're not going to do is talk about this. You're going to work your plan. You have a plan. You said the reason you chose this was because of that. So either you're going to continue choosing this because you have a path and a plan,
That's
or
true.
you can pivot right now and go put in an application to any other corporation and move into a corporate office.
That's true. That's true. I think that goes back to that, I say entrapment. I think it goes back to number one, mentorship, coaching, execution, back to mentorship, especially when you have young people who feel like, right, they haven't seen anything else. They may have parents who have been stuck in the same place for
Mm-hmm.
the 25, the 30, the 40 years. Well, not this generation, but our generation, right? Um, I don't think these kids work past 3 to 5 years, but in one place. But I say that because, right, when we were going up, I remember Langston Hughes talking about this before he did his poetry. He found a benefactor, and I think one of his relatives was like, that job at the post office gonna solve all your problems, right? Like you get to that post office, you set for life, right? And how many times have people of our generation heard these things, right? Or retired 2 or 3 jobs, right? If you're military, you can retire and work at the post office and retire right there with these retirement plans, right?
Yep.
So and getting stuck somewhere was an option because that was a good job. I remember Oprah, I know you and Oprah, but she was talking about her daddy. She had this good job as a reporter, but she was crying about it. And he was like, girl, you making, such and such dollars an hour. I don't know nobody making, I think it was something like $20 an hour back in the 70s. Like, you had a good job. You crazy if you leave that job,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So that pressure, and then the need for self-confidence, right, and self-value to kickstart yourself into a different direction based on what you're hearing and based on what your patterns are, and sometimes generational patterns. Like,
Yeah.
how do you leave that job, that good job? So good for you. You like encourage your friend, helped her through the
I don't know if
process,
I
gave her
encouraged her or
stable
not.
new
I don't know if
relationship.
I encouraged her that, but I was like, look, girl, you're not gonna be talking to me about this every night. You not fit to burden me with this because it's not fit to happen. So you made that choice. And it's a fine choice. But you can also choose otherwise if you want to. She stuck it out and now taking over the world, which is great.
See, that's
Right.
that's
So,
the point of yeah.
but yeah, I mean, ultimately, as long as, and I'm not saying this to diminish anybody's trauma, because like I said, everybody's got it. And don't think that just because somebody has arrived in a place of wealth or perceived success or whatever, that they don't have. Once again, Jay-Z shot his own brother.
Huh?
Oh yeah, he had a song about it and everything. He shot his own brother. Mhm. It's in the
I
song.
totally missed that
You
Cook
must with me.
moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, he shot and he talks about it. So I'm sure that was very traumatic, whatever. People have trauma. People have been raped, people have been sexually assaulted, people have been beaten, people have been um talked about, verbally assaulted, all sorts of people have been robbed, like all sorts of stuff. Like everybody has something more than likely. And so not to diminish that and not to diminish as the melanated people on this particular in this particular country, what we go through and the hardships that, people make it more difficult than it gotta be and all this other stuff. And that's fine. But setting all of those external factors aside, at some point in your
At
life,
some point.
at some
Yeah.
point in your life, you have got to say, either I'm gonna be okay with where I am, and if that's making $60,000 a year or $30,000 or whatever or 500,000, whatever it is, I'm okay with this and I can do what I need to do on it and I'm fine. Or I'm not fine and this is not what I want to do and this is not, I want to make more, or I don't care if I make less, but I want to do something else or whatever. Whatever that is, you've got to make the decision. And then you have got to start trying all sorts of things to get to where you need to be. There's no other way around it.
I'm about to pass the offering plate because that was a whole that's a whole sermon on. I'm serious. It's a whole sermon. It's actually anti-church message because it is a whole sermon on again the stench of freedom. The stench of freedom that forces us to take accountability and responsibility for our creations and what our options are. And it is not for the weak. And it is not for the faint of heart because it's a hard workout. Well, somebody said, well, if you say hard work, it is real work showing up authentically and deciding to move through you, right? Move through you and move you out of the way. That is real work. You are enough. If you have kids, it's two and people, but it's real work. So no, I appreciate that because that's sobering. Because a lot of times, especially culturally, especially Black church religiosity, the focus has been on right once you make the millions and the money, right? That sort of unrealistic perfection of God is smiling on you and you know the heavens open up and you're no longer human.
Nope.
And you know, not to say that some things may make more sense in a way, but people are people. As I saw for some reason I was watching the Kardashians for some crazy reason on Instagram. I got caught on the girl Northwest.
The daughter,
And
yeah.
I was like, wait, how did this I thought she was so I was like, could God have done something even greater? How is it? I was like, is this fake? How is it that she says and confesses and is who she is with that's her mama? Like I was
I mean,
like,
she got a daddy. She got a daddy who got some form of religiosity going on.
I was like, well, she is and so early too, right? Because I think she's only 11. The antithesis of what that empire espouses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is hilarious. You were like your mom's worst nightmare. Just as brown as you want to be. And I was like, this is so funny. Oh my gosh. She is literally just, oh wow, if this ain't karma, I don't know what is. So, so I say it to say, right, I was looking because 20 plus years ago, whenever that came out before I
Long
had
time ago.
children and married and stuff like that, I remember watching them because they were kids themselves.
Yep.
I think most of them were in high school or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And they had a normal looking house on whatever house that you could drive by. And I remember thinking because when they came out, their dad was famous after the OJ
That's
trial,
correct.
right?
Right. Yep.
So we didn't know them. I just knew their daddy.
Right.
And I remember thinking, wow, what is it like to live in Beverly Hills, whatever, with that type of money? And then, of course, right, the tape with Ray J comes out and all this stuff. And I was like, what? Like, what are they doing? This is crazy. But it still looked glamorous, right?
Yeah.
But then when I learned that Kris Jenner, the mama, that woman is a hustler with a capital
Oh
H.
yeah. Oh yes.
A hustler, and she never stops working.
Never stops. Never stop. And that's what I'm saying. People, I don't think people get that about most people who have achieved what they've achieved is because they don't stop. I'm in the middle of watching, well, two things. So Martha Stewart's documentary, which I'm not a huge fan of Martha Stewart, because her recipes are generally nasty. But I mean, her cake be dry. I'm like, girl, what recipe? Okay, anyway. But I will tell you this,
That
Martha.
magazine was popping in the 90s. That's all I got to
Right?
say.
Martha had her magazine. If you think about all the iterations that Martha Stewart has been through and reinventing herself,
God.
including present day, where she out here putting on lip balm and doing
With
duck lips in the pool with a bikini on. What, like all of that.
Snoop Dogg.
And Snoop
What?
Dogg, right? And her friendship with Snoop, all of that. Like the amount of, like, she is a master of reinvention.
Yeah, she is.
And people can say, well, yeah, she's a white woman. She can, and I guess she does get a little bit of latitude because she's a white woman, so she gets to reinvent herself. That is true. But she's also very brilliant at how it's a lot of people who are white and did not use their privilege in the white way, apparently, and did not get to reinvent themselves. So so there's that. And then I'm also looking at the Starting Five, which is like a documentary on like it's like LeBron, Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, and like five of the like kind of faces of the NBA right now. And LeBron obviously oldest player in the league, longest history in the league. And you look at the amount of work that boy put in. And again, I'm also not really a LeBron fan in that way, like for the NBA. But you look at the amount of work that he puts in, and I'm like, wow. Wow, like
Yeah,
wow, just wow. Like and so it's a lot of people out here that just think that people just show up and be great. I mean, there is a part of that that does exist. You do show up and you be great, yes. But there's also, in conjunction with showing up being great, it's a lot of work going on in the background.
there's a
Jeff
lot of work.
Bezos didn't just start off as Jeff Bezos with Amazon. I
Oh,
bet
I got that clip. Yeah, 10
yeah, I
years.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it took
yeah.
20 years for Amazon to blow up.
Yeah, the work. No, I'm with you. And I've actually questioned myself. There goes true confessions. Um,
Law and Order.
because I'm like, this is interesting, right? Because I look at this. I look at Beyonce's, I look at these superstars.
Hmm.
And you're right, there's talent and there's work. Like Madonna, an excellent example of somebody who's put the work in. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and I look at them and I'm like, I don't want to work. I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's a
I
lot of
don't want
people
to
who
work.
don't. It's a lot of people like, I don't want to work that hard. And then you have to be okay with where you land.
I know.
You have to be okay. Like one of my uncles um is very, very well off. Um has 2 degrees from MIT, a degree from Harvard,
Wow.
rose to the highest ranks in a big five consulting firm, like right second in line to be the CEO, all this stuff. And when people talk to him, and he does a lot of, mentoring and all this other stuff. But interestingly enough, people would be like, oh yeah, I want to be like him and whatever. And I'm like, well, you should be prepared to not sleep in your bed for 300 days out of the year because that's his travel schedule as he hops from client to client
Yeah.
and country to
See,
country. And
that reality is very, very interesting to me. And being honest with myself, being honest with I'll just use my example, being honest with myself about, I say I want a thing, and then I realize, oh, this takes this type of maintenance and effort,
correct.
and adjusting it based on the reality
That's
of
correct.
how I structure my life
Correct.
is a real thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's a reality check of, like you're saying, okay, I want to find or do something that takes this amount of maintenance and effort, but I want these results. I got to figure out how
Correct.
to make that shore up, because especially as you get older, you have so much energy, you have so much tolerance for people. And let's put a button there. Let's talk about people, okay? Because I've often heard you talk about this thing called people, right?
Much as I've
But
been.
and didn't even understand truthfully what you were talking about, because I've been in childhood world a very long time, right? Elementary world. Finally have a 14-year-old, but he's kind of contained by me, so I can pull him back down. Anyway, I say that because I am I have not allowed myself to really be around adults for the sake of being around adults,
Hmm.
right? My last baby is 7, so I'm now reintroducing myself into the adult world. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Apparently, it's been a long time.
Not all it's cracked
It's
up to
been
be.
so baby. I was like, I see why I work with kids. As hard as it is to work with kids, seeing that child in adults feels very disconcerting to
It
me.
does. And it's a lot of it. It's a lot of
I'm disappointed.
that. And that's why I don't understand why people go to work with these expectations of what's supposed to happen in your job. I'm like, y'all, I don't know what you think you're gonna get from your leaders. First of all, they the problem first. Secondly, like the same. the same crazy stuff that happens that you look at on the news and you be like, how did that person, whatever, that's the same people. That's the same people sitting in the corner office. Same person sitting in the corner office, bringing hell and rain and hellfire throughout the office for no reason at all. And you taking it personally. If you don't just show up, do your job, and move on with your life, like,
Oh my God, Natalie, you are so, because this is the first year and apparently a decade that I am dealing with adults. And the expectation was I was going to deal with adults. But no, that's not happening. And so I say that because it takes a whole lot of courage and focus and balance and sanity to move out into the
right,
world
yes.
with other adults and do your thing and be able to shift and make it happen because you have to deal with people.
Mhm. And they lie
People.
and they delusional. They don't be in reality. You be like, are we looking at the same thing? Did you not read the email? Did you not see the report? Did you not like all the things? Yeah, all the things.
And when
All
I
the things.
saw I saw something about Facebook guy, Zuckerberg.
Mm-hmm.
He literally, and I cracked up because I thought I did this in college, but I see nothing has changed. He talked about these high paying executives, right? That on the right and left of him, right? These are all millionaires. And he was like, I'm trying to figure out how we can get in a meeting. He said, I take the first 30 minutes so we can just all read the report.
That's
Because if I,
Bezos. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
okay, because if
Jeff
we dive
Bezos.
right in, no one
No one's
even
read
read
it.
it.
But
I was like,
here's the thing, and I actually saw that same little clip, and I actually reposted it on my LinkedIn because what I found so refreshing about that, and again, Jeff Bezos, probably a horrible, like people say he's nice, but I'm like, you don't get to where you at by being nice, right? So like I don't believe that at all. But great, let's talk about him like he's nice. The the thing I appreciated about that what he was saying was the ownership of the non-accountability. Like people get along, people are like, well, how come my leader didn't, and shouldn't they, and wouldn't they, and how come they don't? And I'm like, why do you continue to have those expectations? This person has shown you that they're not going to read the thing. So if that's the, and for whatever reason, it may not be incompetence, it could just be they're super busy and the last thing they got time for is to read something. It could also just be they don't like reading. As I raise my hand, I don't want to read the thing. Like give me a
or
quick little
pay me to
outline,
read.
whatever.
I'm here at work. Yeah, pay me
It
to
could
read.
be any
Yeah.
number of things. But if you know that's their behavior, then
That's
you need to manage your expectations around their behavior and stop expecting something different. Set up a meeting and read the goddamn document together. That's what we're going to do. I actually have a
and
client
now
that's like that right now. Nobody reads anything. So we literally set up meetings to read the communication together and they give comments to the communication and all that. And I'm like, if that's how y'all want to spend your time and you want me to spend my time that way because my time ain't cheap, then cool, we can do that. Because you get paid either which way.
you
That's
get
the thing I don't
paid out
understand. Adapt yourself. You get paid either
either
which way.
way. Well, you know what? You like it. I love it. I love that
You
attitude.
like it, I love it.
I love that attitude because it's about acceptance. It's about here's where we are and here's where I want to be. But like you said, I get paid either way, and this is exactly what this is. So damn.
And it would make people's lives so much easier. You most of the time, most people who are the ones who do the work, who actually fingers on the keyboard or in the refinery, or in the plant, where doing the work, most of the time they've encountered enough people in their line of work consistently enough to recognize a behavior.
It's true.
And this is where hope, I think, undermines things. I know you're hope and rah rah, but this is where hope undermines things because instead of dealing with the reality of the situation, you keep hoping for a different outcome, even though you know you sit in AP every day and you know for a fact that the person who codes this invoice will never code it on time. Never. You always have to follow up with them because now the invoice is 3 days late. And you mad because you got to follow up with them. But you know that's the person's behavior. So instead, why don't you just set a little alarm for yourself or create a little auto email to go out that goes and reminds them automatically because you can schedule emails in Outlook. Just set that up. And then you ain't even got about it's gonna go out to them and then they're gonna get, oh, I'm 3 days late. That's my time. I do it 3 days late all the time. I'm 3 days late. It's like your cycle. If you know your cycle is 5 days late all the time, why are you wearing pads on the 28th day when you know it ain't coming till the 32nd?
Well, you know what? I think you might deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. I think this is just what it is. I think this is what we are. I think we're so used to domination and control, right? Um I think this is wonderful. I think it's wonderful because it takes the angst out of it.
It
It takes the
does.
guilt and the shame. It solves a problem.
It does.
It just solves a problem.
It
If this
does.
is the pattern of behavior, then we are going to course correct based on what the reality of the behavior is,
Right.
and just adjust there. And I want to make a note on what you said because I find it to be very poignant and very true. There is a fine line between hope and denial,
There
a
is.
very thin line between hope and denial, and and faith. But in the latter days of myself, meaning past 2 weeks, I have started to think of hope. Hope is something negative,
It can
right?
be.
Because
It
hope
can
is
be.
a fantasy
It can be.
world, right? The way I want things versus what we're talking about now of balancing against the reality of what I truly need and desire. Like I'm not going to be I have no desire to get the fame of Beyonce
Right.
and her work schedule
That's
and
correct.
whatever that takes to sell. I don't say sell my soul, but you see how they have to do autographs and stuff like that. And I
Hmm.
realized I would never want to do that. I
Yeah,
would
you just
never
want to
want
go
to
to the
stop.
grocery store and mind your business. That's
Yeah.
correct.
I don't even want you to know who I am. I don't
Correct.
I don't need you to know my name.
That's
How about
correct.
that? I just want the
Correct.
money.
That's correct. Well,
So accepting that, you know what? Maybe the pathway 20 years ago would have been a songwriter. You just sell the songs or whatever,
you
or do
just
the
sell the
licensing,
songs and it don't even matter.
right?
Keep your publishing rights and sell the songs.
Just sell the songs. But unfortunately, right, we've attached some type of ego fulfillment, like you said, with the job to this thing, or we have these unrealistic expectations of what a boss in the workplace and all this is supposed to look like. We have people who want to do a kumbaya at work, and I'm realizing I'm prostitute myself here, and this is a transaction. This is the one, wham bam, thank you, ma'am situation,
Correct.
right? You
Correct.
want it, I give it. I don't really want to be your friend. So I love that because this is all about acceptance of a very, very interesting reality that we get to create and take responsibility for,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. And I think people, and I kind of blame all of the like best-selling authors and all this stuff nowadays in the business world because they've kind of pitched this idea. One, there's this idea of, showing up as your authentic self at work. And while I agree to some extent that you should not dim your light or diminish who you are as a human, there are also some loose boundaries to that. And depending on where you now look, if you work for yourself, find the clients who can appreciate every ounce of you all the time. If you work for someone else, there are rules and regulations to that. So you you may, again, living in the land of hope and wishes, you may want someone to, where you can be loud and boisterous at work, but you work in a cubicle office space. So that's not, it's not really productive. Your cube
You have to
mates
be
are
considerate.
probably going to complain. And even if you're a loud person, because I'm a loud person, and my voice projects and all of that, and you have to tamp it down because otherwise. Also, unfortunately, in this world that's run by extroverts, introverts have to acquiesce to extroverts. Like you're not just always going to be able to not show up to the little team lunch. I know you really don't want to, but you're probably going to have to every now and again acquiesce if you want to climb the ladder. Right? If you
Yeah.
want to climb, you have to figure out what your goals are and then what is required to meet that goal. If you are perfectly happy being, again, the data analyst who sits in their little spot and analyzes data, and you have no other aspirations but to do that job and do that job well, then great. You don't have to go be a team player. You really don't, because you're always going to get meets. Your performance review will always be meets expectations. You might even get an exceed expectations, whatever. You don't need a network in work. You don't need a community at work that's going to like put your name in places and make sure that the director sees your work. And like, you don't need all of that. Cool.
Prepared. Oh, hold on. Okay.
But like, wait a minute, I lost you. But if your goal is to climb the corporate ladder, become partner at work, whatever, that requires you rubbing some elbows and making friends, and you got to figure out what it is you want, and then whether what you want aligns with what you are willing to do. Because again, I'm not a people person. I'll say it to anybody who asks. I don't like people. I say to my clients all the time. But then I turn around and I'm kikiing and haha and yep, because if that's your culture, me coming in there not having the conversation, unwilling to be personable, amiable, make the joke, have some fun, whatever, isn't going to be productive for me as keeping you as a client. So
Tears.
So I can not have you as a client, which is fine also, or I can put on my big girl pants and decide that I'm going to be a little more jovial than I normally would, which is why everybody think I'm an extrovert at work. People be like, "You're an extrovert." I'm like, "Nope, I'd rather be in a corner with my nose pressed against the wall. That's where I would like to be." Okay. That's where I would like to be. That's where I would like to be. So yeah, so you just have to figure out what you want,
We do. We really, really,
and
really,
then
really.
whether what you want, because I would also like to be a size 8. But when I look at the diet that is required and the exercise that is required for me to be a size 8, I'm happy at a size 12. That's what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be a size 12.
Okay. Mm-mm. Look, and 12 was looking iffy because uh
Sometimes we're 14, because women's clothes.
yeah, 14, yeah, 14 is maintainable with almost no
14,
weight until the hip flexors start.
you know. So
Yep.
yeah, so you just have to you have to figure out what that's going to be. The reason why most people achieve the greatness that we see that they in their companies, when they build these companies and they become behemoths, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, Google, those people made really tough decisions that the average person doesn't want to have to make.
That's
They've
right. And
chosen
not
to
willing.
lay people off. They've chosen, okay, we're going to move these people to part-time because it's better for our bottom line, because then we don't have to offer them benefits. They've chosen, we're going to do this deal with China because it's better than doing the deal here in the United States. They've chosen a lot of things that most people don't want that decision sitting on their desk.
That's right. That's right. It takes that type of
It takes that type of person.
yeah. Yeah. It's almost like in well, look, this is my experience watching the show Billionaire. So trust me, I'm making all of my comments based on that TV series. It looks like it takes a very non-empathic approach to life, right? It's very, to me, it looked very clinical and almost like
Mhm.
war. Like if you go to war, you have to
Yep.
decide quick, boom, 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 boom.
Exactly.
right? Yeah, that's yeah,
Yeah, I mean, just like not very many people want to make the decision to send somebody else's kids to war to
yeah,
die.
yes.
That's a very special individual, special where however you want to coin it, whether it's a positive special or a negative special, but it's a very special person who has to take in that data, and then the
Right,
buck stops with you because you're the one who made the decision to send somebody's child into battle where you know there's going to be loss of life.
right. Mm-mm, not me. I don't want that
I don't
job.
want to be that person. It's a lot of people who don't want to make those types of decisions. So, I at one point thought I was going to be a thoracic surgeon.
Really?
Went to school pre-med and everything, and then inorganic chemistry. And then I was like, do I really want to be a thoracic? First of all, do I even like people enough to crack open their chest and save their life? Then after that,
Oh,
do I really
that
want chemistry this much in my life to have to do this on a regular? I was like, you know what? Nope, I don't. I don't.
gut.
So I'm gonna change right now.
Wow. That is so fascinating what makes people choose what they do choose. But yes, to be the decider on that is pretty that's so fascinating. And then how we end up what we end up passionate about and how certain work that you do, some people can never do work
Yep.
I do, some people can never do. So
Yep. Oh yeah, because I'm not dealing with Johnny with scissors stabbing people in the leg. Let's be clear. I don't care what kind of protocols you didn't taught me about how to restrain them, how to de-escalate this. Just like, well, I'm not a cop. I'm not running after you. I am going to shoot you. And then we will have the conversation when you bleeding out on the ground. I'm not running after you. I'm not doing none of that. I'm not tussling with you. We're not doing none of that. Same thing with little Johnny with scissors. Look, boy, I will put you in a chokehold, and then we will tell your parents why the coroner is here instead. So I can't, I'm not that person. I'm not that person. So
it's so funny.
also why I
It's
didn't
so
become a doctor. I'd be firing on my patients. I'd be like, you didn't take the medication? Didn't I tell you to take the medication? I'm not taking the L for you losing your life on my books. No, we're not doing that. You're fired. Get out.
oh my gosh. I have this crazy off kilter comment, but I had a conversation with someone who shall remain nameless for now. But he talked about something very interesting. You're gonna be like, what the hell? So he was talking about his experiences at a brothel that is not on the American continent, and it was what's it called? It's legal in this country.
Mm-hmm. It was legal in a lot of places. Yep.
And for some reason, I was like, wow, that sounds actually better than the marriage I was in. But he talked about how when the women manage, like when they can manage their own business, right,
Mm-hmm.
of prostitution, he says it's very different. So he said the men weren't allowed. He said, in fact, in this place, it was illegal for men to prostitute, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
women could. And so I don't know how to get that off. So I thought it was so interesting because he said the woman talked about if she works her 8 hour day, she's covered for the month. So I was like, how was that humanly even possible? What are they charging? And he was like, oh, like this amount. I was like, that still doesn't make sense. He said, well, you don't get it. He said, and this is when I learned, I guess, something that maybe I need to learn. He said, there's no kissing and no cuddling.
Yeah.
Most men just want to deposit, and it's a couple seconds or minutes at
At
best.
best. At
I was
best.
like, I can show.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, within an hour, if I'm charging you $50,
It's five
if I'm
minute
charging,
transactions. It's 5 minute transactions. Mm-hmm.
and I was like, and everybody's good with that. He was like, everybody's good with that. No kissing, no cuddle, no foreplay.
None of
We
that.
just hit
Just
this
go
ticket.
in, do the deed, and you out.
I was like, that's why I don't want prostitution. I was like, I have never thought of it like that. I have never thought of it like that. Not that you want people jacking in you, young ladies. This is what I'm saying. But if you've ever been married to the wrong person before, you can see how the it and the person didn't know what they were doing in the first place. You can see
That's
how the
hilarious.
it justified the right. I was
But
like,
I
well,
mean but let's be clear though. There's a lot of women who don't service a lot of men. They service one man who they are married to, but the man sustains a lifestyle that they appreciate. And they're like, look, if he come home once a week from off the road and he want to get down, then okay, it's an hour out of my life and my kids get to go to private school. I get to shop and be on all these little charity boards. He's not here, so I really don't see him anyway. Great. I'm willing to do that. It's a lot of women who make that choice.
who make that choice? Look, and I look on this side of 40, I ain't mad at you.
I mean,
I
hey,
ain't mad at you.
figure out what you want in life. And if you are willing to do the thing that is required, right? So, again, I already know I don't like being on call like that. So no, probably not gonna work. Not no amount of money is gonna help me deal with, like, you see all these little cute girls walking around with these dudes who mouth breathing and all this other mess, and I'm like, how's that working? And apparently you're okay, but I'm not okay. I can't. I'm a girl who's gonna have to make my own money
Oh no, I don't want.
because
I like freedom. No, I like
um
freedom. That sounds like a form of prison to me. But it's so interesting to me, like you said, all the ways in which you can negotiate. The average person, at least in this country, can negotiate their definition of freedom.
yep.
Right? What works for me? How do I want to exist in this space, and what does it take for me to maintain it? Because let me
Right.
tell you something, that maintenance part is what gets me. So
Mhm.
yeah, we have a lot more to work with
Oh my God. That's
than
what I'm like. The notion that anybody claims anybody here in America is surviving, who's an American citizen, is surviving. I'm like, no, nope. You're gonna have to carry that argument to a whole nother place because it's not gonna fall very well over here. No.
I think it's the mental burden. I think it's the torture. I think if you are stuck in what I mean by if you are at a level of fatigue and exhaustion from work, right? And you have a burden of a family, then you can get yourself in a space where it's hard to think outside that box creatively so you can shift and make a
Yeah, but
change.
we also do things here. We burden ourselves with a lot of things that we don't need to burden ourselves with. So, case in point, I'm always flabbergasted. And this is the season where it's about to happen, and I just get annoyed and I'll be like, why are we even having this conversation? I am always flabbergasted by um the charity organizations that provide gifts to kids who come from like under whatever you want to call them. I don't know what you want to call them. People who don't have as much money as other people. Um and I'm just like, so we've acknowledged the fact that the people whose children we're giving the gifts to maybe don't have as much money as other people. And our thing is to try to create a Christmas for them. Like that. That's the useful, that's the useful thing here, that we should try to create a Christmas experience for them. So that's what I'm like, and parents who are out here like working 12 jobs because they supposed to got to get their kids some gifts. I'm like, that's what you working 12 jobs so you can get your kid a gift at Christmas?
It's it's really, really cultural. And I say this because I did not raise my kids like that. I did not. I used to feel guilty for that, but the one year I did, then this was actually last year. Last year was the first year that I got them a bunch of stuff because I actually could that year. I got them a bunch of stuff and I focused on it. I said, okay, I want to do this. And they looked at me like I was crazy.
Good for them. Good
They
for
were
them.
like, what are you doing? I was like, I wanted to do like this traditional Christmas. They literally were really unbothered. They were really like more bothered than bothered. Like,
Hmm.
because what I'd done in the past is I'd done experiences like let's do this, or I told them I don't do like I don't do Christmas. I don't believe in whatever. So there were other houses they would go to, but I would still give them, I think, two gifts. They could get two things, but it was never on Christmas Day. Like I kind of
Hmm.
went all out with that. But so they weren't expecting it and they were really thrown off by it. Shocked me how much they reacted to that. Like, why are you doing that? Um, but I say that because it is, unless you can resist this machine, unless you have been taught and educated otherwise, people's psyche is attached to their self-worth around this thing.
That's fascinating
Literally,
to
their
me. It's
self-worth
fascinating.
around this thing.
It's fascinating. I don't
People
understand it
get
because I'm like,
depressed.
look, you need
People
to
commit
be.
suicide.
I, I'm like, you need to be happy you got a roof over your head, lights, and food in the fridge. Merry Christmas. Move on. Like I
People
don't like
have,
parents are out here going into debt. People going into debt that they can't pay for another 5 years to give somebody a Christmas. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. That's how you're
that
not
the
gonna
kids
tell
are
me
gonna
somebody
play
out here
with,
surviving.
that they gonna play with and throw away by the end of the week. Literally, I
And
mean,
this is
kids are
why I
not like
don't
that.
buy the survival thing. Because I
They,
guarantee you, in places where people are really surviving, white knuckle gripping it, barely making it, like for real, barely making it, like got a thatch roof, dirt floor, barely making it, no electricity because you got to go to the nearest town to get electricity. Ain't a goddamn one of them concerned about whether they have a Barbie doll for somebody.
you're right. No, no, you're right. And truth be told, I really believe it's an adult thing because kids really, really don't care. They really want mom or dad,
They really
unless
do.
maybe raising that way. And by the time they're in middle school or high school, they're comparing themselves maybe. But if you have, usually that big gift giving happens with elementary kids. I see it at the
Yeah.
schools and stuff. Um, but another degree that I always thought that was really weird to me was, how people end up giving up their kids for adoption, or you have people going to other countries and adopting kids. I often thought, why can't you just help the family so they don't have to give up their kid?
Yeah.
I've, I've often thought about, why are we taking kids? Why can you help keep the family together? Is that
Right.
dishonorable? Is that enabling? But I never understood, why are you taking the kids? Just help out the family,
Well,
unless it's a
part of
mental health issue.
part of it could be also you don't get to dictate how they use the money, right? So you have a kid that's up for adoption, right? I don't have any
Oh, I
real
never thought about
way, really any real mechanism or lever. I can definitely put you in a better place to live. There's no guarantee that you're going to maintain that place. I can, give you stipends for food and clothes. There's no guarantee that you're going to spend it on that. I can even give you the clothes and the food, and then you go sell the clothes and the food. Or like like again, to the thing about the girl who was buying which I had never in my life even thought about, who was buying the food stamps. And I was like, but isn't that supposed to be for the kid? Like, isn't the mom supposed to use it for the kids? And she was like, yeah, but they're gonna sell it anyway. And I'm like, so what are the kids eating now? You didn't, what, I don't, so yeah. So that's probably
I
the
didn't think about
reason
that.
for that.
I guess unless there was a structural organization to help them do that. But yeah, I never thought about that. I thought, if I'm so bad off that I need help my kids, what do I have to give to my kid if I just need help getting on my feet? And you're like, well, some people aren't really trying to do
It's
that,
just,
I guess.
it's the same reason you see it play out where people who have kids who the father might be very well off and wealthy, and they need $80,000 a month for one child. That's the child support request.
Man, I wish that was my
And
game.
I'm
Let
just
me tell you,
well,
I
but
know
I'm just like, you
that.
really need $80,000 a month
I do.
for
I
child
do.
support.
I'd settle for child support. How about that? But yes, I look, if I could get it, look, I'm mad at them mamas. When I hear them women getting over like that, maybe because of my own trauma,
You
I'm
say
like,
you
get it,
call it
baby.
getting over? That's correct. That's what it's getting over.
Get
That's
it,
correct.
get it, get it, pass
No,
it around.
ma'am.
Teach us how to do
No,
it.
no, ma'am. No, ma'am. So yeah, I'm like, now maybe in your
Lifestyle.
alimony check, you need money for you to maintain your supposed lifestyle, but it don't cost 80 grand a month to raise a kid.
No, unless his lifestyle, unless somehow in their prenup that he was supposed to maintain that
No, they don't have
lifestyle.
a prenup. These are just, these are the baby mamas who are now, who, had the baby and are now, want child support and are suing and all those things. But again, even still, like it doesn't cost 80,000 a month.
Of course not. It's not about that. At that point, it's not about that. It's not about groceries and rent, right?
That's
It's
correct.
obviously
That
it's
is
not
correct.
about groceries.
That's my point.
It's about other stuff,
It's
right?
about other
But
stuff.
hell, sounds great. Which means he's got to ask it for you to even. He's got to have it for you to even ask for it. So well done, lady. Well done.
Oh, that's hilariousness. That's hilariousness.
Well done. And teach us. Okay, moving on.
No, ma'am, we do not. We're not teaching them lessons. We're not teaching them lessons. And no.
But you know what I think is a great idea that I did not even understand when I was younger? I think prenup is a fabulous idea. This type of prenup. I didn't realize that a prenup can include, just in case you get divorced, this basically you're making a custody agreement before the divorce. So just in case things go south, this is the agreement, or whatever reason, this is the agreement. And I thought that is actually very clever. It protects, in my mind, it protects the woman, right? Things go south.
It protects
This is
everybody.
the time. It protects everybody. I was like, wow, I would never get married and not have a prenup. That is how I would move.
I mean,
I
look,
would have,
I get the purpose of the prenup. I
even
fully
if it's just I'm taking my $1,000 with me. It could
yeah,
just
no,
be
I get the purpose of the prenup, but I would not ever enter a marriage um
really.
with a prenup. Of course, once Martin dies or whoever died first, I don't know, but I have no intention of ever getting married again. I'm fine. Um, but I would not enter, I personally would not. Um, it's
I knew
for
you
me,
would, but
marriage is not about like a business, yes. We got all the agreements when we enter into a business, all of them, lay them out. We got what's gonna happen if you get married, what's gonna happen if you get children, what's gonna happen if all the things, because businesses fall apart all the time. Um, you know, I, for me, I got married because the Most High literally told me audibly this is who I was supposed to be with. And so I have a very good relationship with him and he ain't led me astray yet. So if something went sideways, then it would work itself out somehow, or whatever lesson I needed to learn from that, I would learn and do whatever. But I just like you're basically for me, and again, I get why they're a safety net in the event it goes south, right? And you're planning for in the event it goes south. The same way you protect your home with home insurance, you're not planning for a fire, but in case it happens, I don't want to have to pay for the right. I get it. And so I get why people do it. Marriage to me just feels more sacred than a home or a piece of property or business or whatever. And so I enter into it under the guise of its sacredness in the same way I don't need to make a prenup with God. Like I'm like, I don't need an insurance policy with God. Like it is what it is and it'll be what it'll be.
okay. I respect that. I respect that.
But I get why people do them. Don't get me wrong. I definitely, and especially if you had fame and fortune before you got married, before you met the person, and you have all these assets you're bringing in. But um, I also believe that you're you're agreeing that you're becoming one thing. So if you separated and divorced, then you would split that equally. Now, maybe your partner doesn't want to split it equally, and maybe that's what you're defining in the prenup. You're saying that it's going to be split 50-50, but it's a lot of people who are like, I came to this with this, so I'm taking it with me. But that's not, to me, that's not what, from my definition of marriage and how marriage works for me. When you come together, everything comes together, and there's no separation. There's no light in between.
Mm.
So if I have
Yeah,
it, if I had it before, which I did, then when you leave, then you get part of it because I agree that it's one of us. That is a singular entity now.
Wow, that sounds is deafening. I'm like, maybe because wow, that was really silent for me. Like something went up. Something died, honey. When you said that, something died.
I
And I
mean,
was like, something died,
it,
something died internally within you said that because I'm like, I don't maybe that is not what I align myself with anymore. Maybe that's why I'm saying that because, trauma, of course. But beyond trauma, um because beyond trauma, I'm like, I can clearly see, um, I can understand hope, right? I can understand hope in some situations. And I also understand that there are, unfortunately, that if some, yeah, I guess it is
but
insurance.
I'm not hoping. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't have a hope. I'm not, I mean, like, I'm not going into this. I mean, obviously, you don't want something to fail. You don't want anything to fail, but I'm not like, whatever happens, happens. So I'm clear. It's one thing, like, hope to me is you're not necessarily clear on the destination, right? Or the potentiality of all the outcomes. You're hoping for this one thing. And if that one thing doesn't work, you're not really sure what's going to happen with the other stuff. I'm
Right.
saying for me with marriage, I've looked at all the possible angles up to
Right.
and including if we happen to have gotten a divorce, some horrific, long, protracted divorce where Martin thought he deserved my entire life of everything. Like I thought about that, and I was like, God told me to do this, so this is it. Whatever happens,
Okay.
happens. If that's one of the outcomes, that's in some timeline, that's a scenario that happens, then it happens, and I'll deal with it when it happens, right? But so I've kind of it's almost like to me it's like and I think we had this conversation a while back. Like I tend to look at things in general, and this is how I make my decisions on mostly everything I can think about. I look at all the possible outcomes that I can possibly imagine. Good, bad, everything in the middle. And if I'm okay with all of the outcomes, then great. So like when early on, I never wanted kids. So when I got married, I was on birth control, and one of the side effects of birth control is death. And it lists it. It says you can die from taking this medication. It says it on the thing. It's a thing.
Die and have kids.
I'd rather die than have kids. That's correct. So when I looked at all possible outcomes, I was like, I could take this pill and never wake up tomorrow. Okay, cool. Because I'm not a person who lives in like that state of I hope this doesn't happen. You have to be okay with it happening. And I think that's the fundamental problem for me with hope is that people spend so much time hoping that something doesn't happen that they aren't okay with stuff when it does happen.
Mhm. Okay,
Right?
break that down.
So everybody spends so much time hoping that 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 again, I'm hoping that this pill makes me not have children. I'm safe. Everything goes on with my life. But what happens if it doesn't? What happens if you take the pill and you get a blood clot and you have a stroke and you can't recover? What happens if which is an option? And it causes blood clots. A lot of birth control pills can cause blood clots. What happens if you die? What happened, right? Like you have to be, and that's the thing I think hope kind of takes from you. You don't end up okay with all of the possibilities. You're only okay with the thing that you hoped for.
Wow. I think, and I think we've talked about this before. You have, I don't want to say unusual, but you have a very unique form of non-attachment
I just
to
think you
this.
need to be okay with the
Otherwise,
outcomes. I think you need to be okay with with
you
with
like
with the
trying to
outcome.
search
If you're
something
not going to
else.
be okay with the outcome, why, with all the possible outcomes and the real outcomes, not the ones that we just think like, yeah, what if aliens come and beam me up and well, okay, great. But not the real like outlandish ones that might be far on the horizon that really aren't really in the spectrum of real this reality, but like literal things that are documented as outcomes. Like there are people who took vaccines. And look, if you want to take a vaccine, that's fine. You have to be okay with what that can do to you, because there is a number of people that have taken certain vaccines and they got Bell's palsy, like all sorts of things. They're also, but you have to be okay. So you have to say, I am so afraid of getting the flu, or so afraid of polio, or so afraid of smallpox that I'm going to go get this vaccine, knowing that 1% of the population this happened to. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I am okay with whatever happens, good or bad. I'm okay with it. And so therefore I'm gonna make this decision and I'm gonna do this thing.
I mean, that's the thing. You have a really unique form of non-attachment that makes you looking at those possibilities, such as death, acceptable. Like, yeah, I could just die. I mean, like, you're too okay with that, but hey.
It's a possibility. I mean, it is a possibility. And I don't know if people, and I don't know. I mean, maybe people just need to not think. I don't know why you wouldn't consider it. I mean, just like, where you spend your time. You get in the car and you drive wherever. Lots of people don't make it back the same way, if at all, when they leave their house. Are you okay with where you are going? That
Yeah, we never leave the house, or we'd walk everywhere,
that
and most of us
well, as
are
I'm
not
saying, so
doing that.
you have to be, well, there are places that I'm not okay going. Like I'm not okay with going to a lot of places. I'll be like, nope, I don't really want to go there. And I'm not willing for the headline to read such and such died and whatever for whatever. Like it's the same reason why like people who do like plastic surgery. Good for you.
Really?
People do plastic surgery all the time, go under knife. There's a lot of death in plastic surgery, a lot of it. So I'm not okay with the vanity in me saying I would like my arm flap gone, and I'm willing to risk my life for that.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm not
No,
willing. I'm not willing for the headline to read: prominent consultant goes in for her arm flap to be removed and dies in anesthesia. I'm not okay with that headline for me. I'm being got to heaven and be like, man, the arm flap got me. I'm not comfortable with that. So me and
okay.
plastic surgery, probably until I get to a place in life where I'm like, okay, if I die because I need to get my eyes lifted or I need to get this second chin removed and I die, I'm good with that. Great. But I'm not good with that at this point in time in my life. I may come to that conclusion, but at this point in time, that's not a risk I'm willing to take for that outcome.
So, are you saying that the sanctity of relationships isn't a sanctity until you can accept all outcomes and not have some type of plan, um, if and when one of those outcomes shift?
I mean, I'm not gonna judge somebody else's how they go about managing their relationship. Look, if that's how you go into your relationship, fine. But for me, right? For me, I literally heard the only reason why I'm married. I say it all the time. This is not facetious. This is not hyperbolic. It is none of that. The only reason I'm married is because God literally told me in the middle of the night that that is the person I was supposed to marry. I did not want to get married. I had no wants to get married. Had dated plenty of people. I was fine. I had friends. I was going on. Well, I had a great life. I was fine. I had zero desire to get married. God told me that that's what I was supposed to do. And I trust God like I don't trust nobody else. So if he feels the urgency to tell me himself, to deliver a message to me himself, then
Oh,
I'm in it to win it forever. Like that, I'm following whatever he told me to do. If he told me to drive off a cliff and I can see it's a cliff, but I
again,
know,
you with the non-attachment.
but no, it wouldn't be non-attachment because I don't know what's going to happen. But whatever it is, it's going to be fine because he's the one who told me to do it.
Wow.
So even though I might see a cliff up there, if he like keep going, then I'm gonna keep going. I'm be like, okay, well, he must know something I don't know. He obviously knows something I don't know. And whatever happened, it's gonna be fan freaking tastic. So let's
Well, how
let's
do you
do this.
know if that voice is actually for you? How do you know if that voice is actually God? How did
I
you know
think you have
that's
to
what that
hone
voice?
it. I think you have to hone it. It's just like I would say it's just like your daughter. It doesn't matter how many times I say her name and how many times you say her name. She knows the difference between my voice and your voice.
That's
And
true.
she knows that because you guys have an unbreakable bond. You're her mother. There's no other voice in the world that's ever going to resonate with her like your voice. Same with my mom. I know my mama's voice in NRG fully packed stadium. If I hear my mama voice, I know that's my mama voice.
That's true.
And
Oh,
that's
that's so
because I have
good.
an unbreakable bond with her and she's my mama. It's the same thing with God. But I think you have to build that relationship. The same way if you know if you didn't spend any time with your mom, right? Somebody came and snatched you away from your mom at your very birth, and you only talk to her once every 5 years or 10 years or whatever, you're probably not gonna know your mother's voice
Or trust it. You're
or
right.
trust it.
That's pretty poignant. That's pretty deep. And even as you say that, I remember there was a voice that was telling me, "Don't do this."
Sometimes that's your own internal spirit voice that's like, girl, I done seen the future. Don't do it. I'm from 20, 90, 2,000 years from now. Don't do it. I've seen every version of this timeline, girl. It don't work. Don't do it. Yeah.
Child, man. With that said, as we walk, look, I'm saying this like it is already December 31st. Because it feels to me, it's kind of feels interesting to me because we've done Thanksgiving, and because of the machine, the next thing is
Next thing is Christmas.
Christmas,
Then
and
New
the
Year.
next thing is New Year's, and the next thing is right this new space that we're going to be in, which I don't know, it could be either or, I don't know, but whatever it is, it's going to be a shift. And I really had to dip my, because like, you know what, we talk about change all the time on here, and people don't like change. People don't like
People do
change.
not like it.
So
I live and do that all day long, trying to get people to try to take a change journey. They don't like it.
like change. So it's gonna be Valent. It's gonna be Martin Luther King. It's gonna be Valentine's. It's gonna be spring break. Like I don't care if people have to. I don't care if we're under the bridge. People are gonna reenact their sense of norm to stabilize themselves because we don't like change,
That's true.
right?
That's true.
So that could be painful or it could be comforting. But in a way, I'm finding comfort in the fact that if there is a chance of doing something, some trickery, well, you it has to do a lot to make people change out of the current events. People are just as
No,
many followers.
there are motivators that will get people. Fear is a very powerful motivator. Very powerful motivator.
You're right,
People
like a
will
coach.
people
You're right.
will do all sorts of things if they are scared enough.
You know what? You're right. People will, yeah. If people are afraid, they will. But well, can you predict them though into their
Highly predictable. And they run models on this stuff all the time.
because I'm like, are they predictable even in their fear patterns? Do they kind of run to the same type of behavior when they're afraid? I mean, that's kind of comforting. I know what you're going to do
Well,
when you're afraid.
humans are predictable in the fact that they always want to survive, and so in a state of fear, they will do the thing that will likely bring their survival. So again, with COVID, you look at COVID, right, and our response to COVID, and I know, like again, you talk about percentages. So let's just say even if we had reached 10% of the population, which we didn't. We weren't even at 3% of the population being infected and a small percentage of that percentage being
It wasn't even 2%.
right, dying from it. But just the thought of that, most people abided by what was told for them to do. They stayed in their house, people were wearing masks. When the vaccine came out, most people, because they hit their 80% very quickly once they got enough of the vaccines created, most people raised their hand for the vaccine and took the vaccine because they were concerned about catching it. So fear
Well,
is,
and the motivating factor was, death and unemployment.
that's what I'm saying.
So
Fear is very powerful. Fear is very powerful. That's what I'm saying. So you may not like the change, but if there is enough of a sense of urgency created around a state of fear,
it's true.
people will change. People will give up rights. People will, I mean, some, 20 some odd years ago, people flew planes into the side of a building. And look how many rights we gave up related to that. There's now a secret, we didn't let them convene a secret court that nobody knows about, where the president brings names and put people on a hit list without a judge, jury, none of it. We let people lock people up indefinitely without access to attorneys. We were just like, here you go. Just keep us safe. Please keep us safe. Please keep us safe.
I recently heard this interview that what's the dude? The Vanderbilt dude from CNN. Um, a 93-year-old survivor out of Auschwitz, I think,
Hmm.
the Holocaust. This is the only reason I bring this up. I bring it up because she had a conversation on fear that I thought was really, really interesting. And she talked about the fact that, right, most people out of fear are very compliant because they're hoping that things aren't as bad as you think it's going to be.
That's correct.
And so she said whole neighborhoods, meaning thousands of us, boarded these trains. And what they realized quickly over time is if we kill, because ultimately they said the goal was labor. So if I
Hmm.
kill the women and the children were useless, right? Because they couldn't
Hmm.
labor very much. But if I killed the women very quickly and kept maybe just a few
The birth,
who
yeah.
could do the work I wanted to do, then you wouldn't have the chaos being separating the mother and the kid and all that screaming and
Hmm.
hollering. So she was like, but she said our psyches would not allow us to register that this was happening.
Hmm.
She said, and it was silent. Like people were, because he said, were y'all screaming? Were you crying? Were you wailing? She was like, no. She's like, that's for normal pain. That's for like normal. She said, radio silence.
Hmm.
Like our psyches would not allow us to register this type of horror. So it's like we turn into some type of zombies,
Hmm.
and you didn't fight, you just like kind of like checked out.
Hmm.
You just checked out. And so when you're saying that, and I thought, holy shit, most people, most people, rightfully so, because you're scared and shocked and things like that. And especially if you are part of the majority and you are used to everything going your way. If you're privileged, you won't have the capacity to beg in rebellion, right? You won't have that
Hmm. Correct.
capacity to fight back because you're just
Hmm.
what's going on. And I'm gonna pick on white Americans for a bit. And if that's your norm, right? If that's your norm of because I keep hearing white women say, I was so shocked. Hearing that. If that's your norm, right, on a Tuesday with an election, then I can't imagine people being horrified when because he's already said I'm defunding the Department of Education and these Title I programs and whatever that might else mean, right? Um, I can't imagine how radio silent people might get, but at the same time, I feel like people were so loud during COVID. It at one point, right, there was a clear division of, oh hell no, I'm not taking this no more, right? You had that influx. So I'm like, it's got to be pretty bad for people to actually start rebelling, or so horrible that they don't. So I don't know. I don't know where that lands us, but we'll see.
We will see.
Because anyway, it's gonna be Christmas
We'll
until
see.
it's not, right? Until it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. I think we'll have to see. I don't think the vast majority of people are built to rebel. Takes an
Right.
extra special type of spirit to be a rebel,
Right.
right?
Right.
Most most people, and you see it in, stories as far back as even like with the children of Israel during their captivity in Egypt, right? Like, they outnumbered the Egyptians, which is one of the reasons how they ended up getting led into captivity to begin with. Um, but they were just like, okay, well, this is our new. You went from having everything,
Mhm.
being wealthy, having everything, having a great relationship with Egyptians and all that, to being in a mosh pit. And I mean, I think you see it play out in history that most, first of all, most rebellions are relatively small, considering the amount of people who are impacted by the thing that people are rebelling against.
Right.
And then, most people, again, as long as there's some loose semblance of life,
Mhm.
most people are going to be okay with whatever that looks like. Because the alternative is I have to go do something and I don't want to go do something. I don't want to
Yeah.
fight. I don't want to yell. I don't want to, I don't want to do anything. I just want to hope that my life gets back to the way that it is. And if we just sit here long enough, it might just come back the way it used to be.
And that's exactly what she was saying. She was like and she was, I think, a teenager at the time, but she was like, that fantasy, that denial. She was like, that whatever it was that she clung to, surely my mom's coming back. Surely
It's
this is going to be
fascinating.
over.
It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
surely this is going to be over.
And
Surely. She was like, even though we were skin and bones and
yep.
starving, surely. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and you see it even in corporate America. I have a client right now who in the last quarter or two, their stock has lost about 50% of its value.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and they're a global company. It's interesting to hear because in my head, at the end of the year, if your stock is 50% less than what it was when you started the year, then I'm expecting really significant layoffs because there's only
Yeah.
two things that are top line items for companies where they can get immediate cost savings from. And that's either their real estate holdings, because the amount of spaces that they operate in, or people. Real estate is difficult to get out of because you got contracts you were in, you got to sell the stuff, you got to wait for somebody to buy it, or you got to let somebody let you out your lease, or you got to let somebody sublet it or whatever. So that's a little difficult. People,
Mhm.
though, I can release them pretty quickly and just get them whatever severance I'm gonna get them, if at all. So that's my thinking was okay. I'm like, okay, well, let me figure out how I can help you guys manage through this whole process of whateverness. And it's interesting to hear the employees because they're not thinking like that. They're not
Um,
thinking, they've heard their CEO say, that they, need to keep focused on the work that they're doing and all these things. And I'm like, that's the talking point that the CEO has to say. What else they gonna tell you?
uh,
Abandon your post? Like they're not gonna tell you that. So it's fascinating. I'm like, y'all really like you think that your Stockton took a 50% hit and you gonna be okay? Like you think that the neighbor sitting next to you is gonna be there starting January 1st? I'm like, I don't know how you, but they do, and it's odd. It's very odd. And it's that hope mindset, I guess, where they're just like, I'm hoping that this isn't like the previous times.
that's deep denial. I don't know when, and maybe I need to look up the definition of hope, because when you have data sitting there and there's a behavior pattern, like a trend with corporations, right? Of what A plus B equals C, you know.
Easy math.
Um, yeah, easy math. That is a sense of dime. The only thing I can compare that to is this is really crazy, and it was called crazy making. When I was in my marriage and I was in shock and awe of the violence, there's something that happens to your brain, almost like a PTSD, where, well, maybe it is PTSD, where you can't conceptualize. It's like you immediately start because there's this love or addiction or whatever of the person, right? And you can't conceptualize what just happened. Like you're trying to do that, and you have this person, which could be the CEO, saying everything's fine, everything's
Everything's
right.
fine. It's gonna be okay. We've hit a rough patch. Everybody just we need to stay focused on what we're doing, keep working, keep looking for ways that we can get the most efficiency out of the processes that we have in place, all those great talking points. And yeah, that's why I don't understand the mindset of abuse. Like I know there's a lot of people who are in it, the cycle of abuse, but I don't understand the mindset. I'm like, if you I fully, and maybe it's because I'm a person who believes, I believe people. I believe people when they tell me, like, it's fascinating how many people I say I don't like people to, and they're like, no. I'm like, no, I'm not playing with you. I really don't. Y'all are atrocious. The way you behave towards other people is ridiculous. There's nothing really redemptive. I don't know why Christ came for y'all. But anyway, okay. So but he had hope. So I don't understand their mindset because when somebody, and I don't mean somebody just telling me, and maybe that's why, maybe because when I say that, my words are disconnected from my actions because I'm still help people. I still, so people are like, you don't really hate people because you are helping people. And I'm like, um, but
So I mean, but that's the thing, though, the
the
disconnect.
disconnect, right? So, but when people show you who they are, not
Believe
say
them.
it, but show you,
Tell you.
I believe you 1010%. And I will either move closer to you because of who you've shown me you are, or I will straight up be gone and you will never hear from me ever again, child. So that
I think
if you even raise your voice at me, I'm like, oh, I see where it's going. Okay, nope, I'm out.
and
I
you
got to go.
say that, and I'm like, every time I raise my voice, I'm like, well, that's so bad. I gotta work on it. But when you, I mean, when you say that, I think the resonance to that, because I thought you would never tolerate something unless it resonated somewhere deep within you. So I think because you were a child, you were never hit on, right? You were
Right.
never given that type of treatment. That resonates absolutely nowhere within you. But if you somewhere had some resonance with that, right? That was familiar to you in some way, I think that's the foot in that door where you can start to spiritually, and it's familiar for whatever reason.
Okay.
It's familiar. It has a
But
familiar link.
when you were a kid, I got one spanking when I was a kid, and my mom got real mad at my
You
dad too. She was
disqualified
like,
from this conversation, ma'am. You have one spanking. One. And you and there extra. You said you have one.
I had
I
one
don't know.
spanking. I got one
And
spanking.
you know what? Describe it. Because it's probably not even a spanking. The fact that, no, I'm sorry, wait. The fact that you black and said the word spanking, you're disqualified. It wasn't even real. Because we don't even say spankings. So
I got
can you describe
paddled.
in detail what that was?
I got
What?
paddled. A
Was
paddle.
what?
It was like
That's
a
not,
little wood
that's not,
paddle
no man, where?
on my back.
That's a white folks. Beep, beep, beep. That's
I
not a,
don't know.
you're right,
My
it's a
feelings
spanking,
was
it's not
hurt.
a whooping.
My
That's
feelings was
not,
hurt. I don't know
and
what a
how old were you,
whooping. I don't know what a whooping is, but I feel like I got beat that day. I was like, my mom was mad too, and my dad. She was like, "Don't you?" And then I never got another whooping again. Anyway, but but generally the reason why you were getting spanked, whooped, get the switch, whatever the thing was, is because someone had drawn a direct line to something bad you had done,
right?
right? And you knew, and more than likely as a kid, you knew you was doing some stuff you shouldn't have been doing. Let's be clear. I don't think there are many kids. I'm not talking about kids who are in abusive families where they just haul off and hit you because you said hi and they didn't like it because it was before 8 a.m. Like normally kids who got whoopings and spankings and all this other, you knew you was doing some mess you wasn't supposed to be doing. You wasn't supposed to be outside. You wasn't supposed to be on the phone. You wasn't supposed to whatever. You knew you was doing something. But in an abusive relationship, I made your breakfast exactly how you like it.
I like how you have this lifetime story ready to go in your back pocket. So many
I
life.
even put 7 potatoes on the plate because I know you like prime numbers, and 7 potatoes would be good.
But it doesn't start that obvious. I think it's like now sometimes, right? But it's to me, it's like the toad in the water, and that is the crazy making part of it. It's never that obvious. It's never that overt, right? It is the narcissist playbook in which someone takes enjoyment, no matter how sadistic, nitpicking at little tiny things. Because
Mm,
by the time it's something physical, it was something mental
long before
long before
that. Okay.
that we were tolerating, right?
Okay.
So you have been chipped away
Okay.
mentally and tolerated stuff and doubted stuff and dismissed stuff until
Okay.
you got to that point. You'd already bought into the whole incident,
Okay.
right? It's sort of like I heard that I forgot the Art of War dude. He said if you wait until the tanks pull up to your shores, you lost the
Oh,
war a
you
long
lost the
time
war.
ago,
It's over. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
right?
That's true.
So the whole propaganda thing, and what I realize is when we're in these type of corporate relationships, physically abusive relationships, there was a propaganda machine going on the whole time,
Oh yeah, that's true. That part
right?
is true. Yeah.
I
That's
don't I didn't show up wanting Burger King. I saw a commercial 5,000 times until I got
and I was like,
16
oh, a
and
Whopper
decided to go
sounds
and get
good. Right.
one.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Like
That's fair.
advertising
Yeah.
all the time. And somebody's constantly advertising to you. And unfortunately, if you believe it, if there's an agreement somewhere in your soul and you believe that, then you consume that until it's
That's
so,
fair. That's fair.
right?
That's fair. Okay.
It's horrible, but it's a consummation process. So unfortunately, I have in the process of detoxing my boys because they were in the same marriage with me. Gracie was not. And so Gracie has a different diet to where she hears something and she says something. It is not okay. I don't know what's going on, but we need to
Mhm.
stop this right now. I'm gonna tell my mama, and this is gonna be over and done with because I
Yeah.
don't know what's happening
I
right
know what's
now,
happening right now,
right?
but it's not what I want. So bye.
Not what I want.
Yeah.
Versus my boys years later that X, Y, and Z happen and they've been tolerating X, Y, and Z because it's been the norm, right?
Mm.
So it just depends on what we're exposing people to at certain amount of time to where they think is their norm. And I love your analogy because you're like, we don't suffer here. Well, we suffer based on our norm, right?
Yeah.
If one of the Kennedys, I'm saying the Kennedys because got generational wealth, live my life, they probably thought they were going to be tortured. Or hell, if you have my right, thinking you're being tortured,
I
right? Versus
made
if
it.
I'm somebody living in a mud hut, I'm sure as hell being tortured. So it just depends
Right.
on like when the hurricane came, the tornado came, and me and Verizon, I mean me and Xfinity had a problem. I didn't have my own internet for 3 weeks. This was a meltdown,
Yeah.
right? It,
Hmm.
I can't. In
Oh, I
America,
get
it's a
it.
society, damn it, right?
I get it. I get it. I get it. I mean it's all relative. I remember it's gonna sound crazy. There was a there I'm gonna not say names, including my own in this particular story, but we was there was a board meeting. I'm not gonna tell you who I was part of the board meeting, including if I was or not. And one of the board members who was on the board um is a great granddaughter of a
Sounds juicy.
Fortune 20 company.
Bill Gates.
a
I'm just
Fortune
throwing
20
stuff out.
company. And we're sitting there and we're talking and all this and everybody's having a conversation, whatever. And the conversation of flying comes up. And
Fine.
people who shall remain nameless, myself included, you know, talking about commercial flights and, economy versus first class and all this other stuff. And this particular individual says, "Oh, I've never had that experience. I've never flown commercial."
Uh-oh.
Right?
Yeah. I've never
And
flown commercial.
I've never flown commercial. Right? So this person's entire life has been spent flying privately, 100% private. Not sometimes private, not private when you get your little credits together on the PJ and get it pulled together and all of that, but 100% private. And so the notion of this person even sitting in a first class seat of having to deal and I've been blessed enough to be able to fly both private and commercial, and there's a distinct difference between the two. Very. And one is like being herded like cattle. Um, the notion she would probably have a meltdown. This person would probably have a meltdown if she had to walk through George Bush Intercontinental Airport, go through TSA, whether it was pre-check or otherwise, whether she had lounge access and could sit in the lounge or not, or had to sit out with other people and board a flight when somebody called her by number with groups to get on a plane to sit in first class. She would probably have a meltdown. And rightfully so, because that's never been her experience. And so that I can't comprehend how people do that. How would you, could you, should you, would you, why, right? So it's all kind of relative, right? It's all you are the sum total of your experiences. And for the person, that little proverb that's like for the person who, um, has a car or some car breaks something, and the other person has a bike, and then the other person has, you know, feet for shoes, and the other person has no feet or whatever. Like that whole it's all relative. It's all relative. Yeah, you're walking everywhere, and you would love to have a bike, but the person who has no feet would love to just be able to walk.
Right. Right, right. In your yeah,
It's
and
all
your body
relative.
will react accordingly,
That's
right?
correct.
Based on yeah, that's interesting. That is so fascinating. But you were, which to me is why the poor and material may stay poor because there is acceptance there, right?
Mhm.
There's comfortability there. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we do because we're comfortable there.
Well,
It's
but it
real.
also creates a hunger, right? It also, I just had this conversation with a client because they're going through hard times financially. And I was like, but that shouldn't prevent you all from being able to innovate. I was like, yeah,
That's
you have
true.
to cut costs, be cost conscious and all that, but that shouldn't prevent innovation. And then,
That's true.
and they were like, well, you can't innovate without money. I was like, that's coming from a place of privilege. That's because you've been making $100 billion a quarter, and now you're not making $100 billion a quarter no more, and
Not
it's bad,
only innovate with
right?
nothing. Like that quote you
Like
said, we
the
just
best
make some of the
innovations
things
come out
go
of broke
broke.
people. Best innovations come out of broke people.
Yeah, that's all we do
So
is innovate.
so there's something to be said about being a have not. There's a hunger that exists inside of people who are in circumstances that they just cannot accept any longer. It is horrible. I've got to do something else to get out of this. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. Let me figure out what the thing is, and then they figure it out and then they blow up. That
That's true.
hunger doesn't, I just odd enough just saw a thing on Beyonce. She was given this thing and she was like, look, I didn't come from the projects. She was like, I lived in a middle class family. She was like, my drive and motivation came from watching my parents. And my mom having her own shop and my dad doing he does all the stuff, right? And so I saw their drive and motivation. So that's one aspect. But then you have her husband on the contrary, who was in the projects was making very bad decisions, right? And his drive and motivation was, I can't live here. I cannot be in this anymore. Like I've got to do something to get out of this, right? So there's something to be said about what that hunger of not having can produce in a person.
That's true. That's true too. That's true. I guess you just steer the energy which way direction you want it
Whichever
to go.
direction. Yep, because you can have it all and be complacent and do absolutely nothing.
So
You can
true.
have nothing and be complacent and do absolutely nothing.
That's true.
It exists on
That's
both
true.
ends of the spectrum.
That's true. The Bible, the man with the talents. You're right.
Yep, yep,
You could do something or you could do absolutely nothing.
yep.
So
So
it's
yeah,
up to you. And you can do different things at different times. So
different things at different times. Look at us go. Okay.
well, that sounds like look, it sounds like a wrap up. It sounds like it's time to innovate. I want to tell you about innovation. I am very slow to the fact that you go on YouTube and you can just create clips right from YouTube.
You can. That's, you can. Yep.
So apparently that's been a thing, but I was like, what have I been doing?
You can. I thought that's where you were getting the clips from.
I
It's
was
like,
doing
huh?
it. This is why it was taking me so long. I was like, really, Rebecca?
I just knew that's where you were getting them from, but okay.
So look, I'm very thankful. I think if for nothing else, no matter which way anything goes, you're about to see a lot of innovation. People are
I
about
love
to
it.
innovate
Oh, yes,
the
they
hell
are.
out of this
They
season.
really are. They really, really are. Because that's about to be the times that we are in. Yes.
It's gonna be innovation city.
I
So
can't wait to see it. 2025 be the year of innovation.
year of innovation. Yes. Okay. I'm claiming that. It's
Let the
gonna be
creative juices flow.
hilarious, girl. I'm gonna be on the comment section on Instagram and TikTok is where most of the innovation is happening. Okay, well, until next time, I'll be making some clips off of YouTube.
Yay!
So sad.
Oh, hasta luego, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.